Alright, let's go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be ranking all 150 Jokers in Balatro based on how good they are in the context of gold stake beating Ante 8. So we're not going to be looking at endless or lower stakes, only concerned about how good are these at beating the game on the hardest difficulty. There aren't that many bad Jokers in the game, so we won't see too many in F tier. Similarly, there won't be too many in S, you're going to see most of them in the middle ranks. Well, let's go ahead and get started. There are 150 Jokers, so spending 1 minute on each to be 2.5 hours. Let's see if we can get this done a little bit faster than that. First up, just regular Jimbo. This Joker gives you +4 Molt. Tended to put him in C tier because this is very good early game. He only costs $2, and you sell him for $1, so this is effectively $1 for 4 Molt. Not bad at all in the early game. This is essentially doubling your Molt. If you don't have anything, playing flush with +4 turns into +8, doubles your score. We'll put him in D tier for now. He's only $1, so with that context, he's not bad at all. But most of the time you see him, you're not buying him. Just the Joker slot is worth more. Next up, we have Greedy, Lusty, Wrathful, and Gluttonous Jokers. All of these Jokers give you +3 Molt when a card is scored of their respective suit. Getting Molt when cards are scored is generally better than getting Molt from a Joker slot, at least plus Molt, because this can trigger before your Steel cards, before your Glass cards, and can also be re-triggered with any re-triggered Jokers. +3 Molt, if you're playing a flush of 5 of one of these suits, you get 15 Molt, which is pretty good. That is very solid for a common Joker. Add on additional synergies. I think it's fair to put these in B. We might move them down later. We'll see how B tier looks. I would probably order them like this as well. But yeah, re-triggers are going to make these a little bit better than some of the standard +15, although you do have to play a card of that suit. So maybe you'd rather just have 15 Molt on all of your hands. Next up is Jolly Joker, +8 Molt when playing a pair, when the played hand contains a pair. So this is also going to work for 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, 2 pair, full house, etc. +8 Molt, very good. Very easy to trigger. It's pretty easy to play 2 or 3 hands that contain a pair. Much easier to trigger this than it is to, say, play 3 clubs to get +9 Molt. So even though this has a lower ceiling, it has a much higher floor, very consistent. Always happy to see it. Basically always buying this early antes, or if I have an open Joker slot. +Molt, generally speaking, is very good early game. A good early game hand is for a flush, 75 chips and ×4 Molt. That will score you 300 points. That's what you want for your the first round, obviously, to clear in one hand. But generally speaking, that's a good ratio, 75 chips, 4 Molt. When you're looking at chips and Molt, increasing whichever one of those numbers that is lower is going to give you the best bang for your buck. So early game, you have very low Molt. You want to add plus Molt as soon as possible because that is how you will increase your score the fastest. So all these plus Molt Jokers are very good early game. They might fall off a little bit later, but getting any plus Molt you can early game is super beneficial. So all these that I just put in C tier are Zany Joker, Mad Joker, Crazy Joker, and Droll Joker. This is +12 Molt for 3 of a kind, so also full houses. +10 Molt for 2 pair, which is easier to play than 3 of a kind, so you get less Molt. Full houses also will trigger this. Crazy Joker is +12 Molt if it is a straight or if it contains a straight, so straight flush. And then Droll Joker is pretty popular, +10 Molt if hand contains a flush. Flushes are very good. They are a little bit of noob bait. You can definitely win playing flushes, but as soon as you're playing on blue stake or higher and you lose your discard, it becomes much harder to play 2 flushes each hand, and sometimes you're going to need to play 2 flushes to win. So losing that discard means that you just don't draw your second flush sometimes and you die and the run's over. Most of the time it works, but maybe that 5% of the time you run into that, you can't play a flush, you instantly lose. The flushes are a little bit lower consistency on higher stakes, so you'll see them rated a little bit lower than you might expect on this tier list. +8 Molt is definitely the lowest, but it's also the easiest to trigger. So that's why I have it in a different tier. These all might end up in the same tier, with the +8 mult for pair being at the top of it later, but we'll see. So I mentioned early game you want a lot of plus mult. There are equivalents of these that are all plus chips. So +50 chips for pair, +100 chips for 3 of a kind, +80 chips if it contains a 2 pair, +100 chips if it contains a straight, and +80 chips if it contains a flush. So all of these give you plus chips. In fact, they give you a fair amount of chips. However, you want these early game because the chips don't scale. You usually, going into late game, are going to want more powerful jokers or scaling jokers. So these are really just early game jokers. In early game, they're giving you chips, which you don't necessarily want as bad as you want plus mult. As an example, Slide Joker here gives you +50 chips for a pair. Well, playing 2 aces is worth 22 chips, and then I believe pair has 10 base chips as mult. So it's 32, so you're adding 50 chips to that. That is essentially, what, times 2.5, times 2? Compared to getting +8 mult for a pair, taking your multiplier up from 2 to 10 is a times 5. So early game, adding chips is not going to have as big of an impact on your score as adding mult. And since these are not scalars, they are only early game, they are not as good early game as the early game plus mult. That's why they're a whole tier lower. They're still useful though, not F tier. Next up, we have Half Joker. So Half Joker gives you plus mult, which is good. It gives you +20 mult if played hand contains 3 or fewer cards. So Half Joker gives you more mult than anything we've seen so far. Even these suited jokers only give you 15 mult. You can get that up with re-triggers. But +20 mult is quite high. It's very good. The downside is you can only play 3 cards or fewer. So you're playing high card, pair, or 3 of a kind. Also, you have essentially 2 less cards that you can throw away. So one thing you can do is you can play a hand kind of as a discard. When you play that hand as a discard, you can only do 3 if you want to get +20 mult. Maybe you still play high card with 5 cards to throw them away to find your pair or find your gold card. But that is, you know, a bit of a nerf to the card. You have to play 3 or fewer. That said, +20 mult is very high. That's a large amount early game. It's definitely the best Joker so far. Next up is Stencil Joker. This gives you ×1 mult for every empty Joker slots. And Joker Stencil does not consider itself. So if you just had Stencil, you would have ×5. This is our first example of times mult. Times mult is pretty good. In fact, it's very good. You probably need times mult to win on gold stake, whether that be through cards or through jokers. Most commonly jokers, you're probably going to need times mult. So Joker Stencil is giving you something that you really need to win. The problem is that Joker Stencil is pretty expensive. I won't mention prices for every Joker, but this one is $8, which is a little high. You can sell it for $4, but still, $8, pretty expensive to get. This Joker also gets worse later in the game as you get more Jokers that are good or scalars. Its effect will get weaker. It's still pretty easy to play with 4 Jokers for a while and just have this as a ×2. That doesn't fall off immediately, but this is definitely an early game Joker, and it's an expensive early game Joker, which is a pretty rough combo. It's still times mult. I don't think you can put times mult below C tier just because of how rare and valuable it is. But the fact that this is essentially locked as an early game Joker because you need empty Joker slots while also being expensive means that, you know, it's a tough combo to overcome. Next up is 4 Fingers. All flushes and straights can be made with 4 cards. So you can play 4 clubs with a diamond, and that'll be a club flush. Same thing with straights. In fact, you can get kind of funky with straight flushes, where you can play a straight with 4 cards, and then a flush with 4 different cards, and you can still get a straight flush. So 4 Fingers is pretty much needed to play straight flushes, barring some great deck manipulation. And it also helps you make straights and make flushes themselves. Most people are going to use this to make flushes, and flushes aren't bad. You know, getting them more consistently is pretty good. 4 Fingers does enable you to play straights, which is nice because straights scale very well. They have one of the better planet cards. So playing a straight means you probably need less scoring from your jokers. So if you're able to play straights, you need less jokers, which, means that this is kind of paying for itself. It's pretty good overall. I think a lot of people just use it to make flushes, which is not that strong, and it doesn't make straights significantly easier to make. I'm actually going to put it in C tier for now, but we might come back to that. I might need to put a S plus tier in here to kind of spread these jokers out a little bit, but we'll see. All right, Four Fingers is uncommon, by the way. So is Mime. Mime will re-trigger all cards held in hand abilities. So if you have a blue seal, you're going to get 2 planet cards. Steel cards will activate twice. Gold cards will activate twice. It's a pretty good effect. It's pretty, you can think of it as an economy joker at a minimum. With gold cards, you probably want 3 or 4 gold cards in your deck anyways. So this is going to be getting you, hopefully you can get, find 2 gold cards. This is getting you an extra 6 gold per hand if your deck is set up right. So, as an economy joker, it's got pretty good potential to outscale some of the other economy jokers, but you've got to put work in and have to have gold cards. It also can help you scoring, obviously, with steel cards, and it can make your blue seals even better. Blue seals are already really good. All in all, it's just a nice joker to have. It does a little bit of everything. It's not too expensive. It's an uncommon, but it's only $5. I think it's probably B tier. And looking at this, I think I am going to need to make, see if I can make a new tier real quick. Add a row above. Then we're gonna call this, let's call this S plus. Is that fair? Yeah, I think we're gonna need to spread these out a little bit more. I don't think mine is an A tier, but we'll leave it in B for now. All right, next up is credit card. Credit card is not that good. Credit card lets you go up to $20 in debt. So rather than spending down to 0, you can go all the way down to -20. There's some fun interactions where bosses will set your money to $0. So credit card, you can go to -$18, and then you gain $18 by playing the boss when it sets you to 0. But all in all, it's just not that helpful. It's only $1. It sells for $1, so it's literally free as long as you have the slots for it. The issue is that you don't need it most of the time. Most of the time, this is just taking up a slot in your shop that you would rather there be a joker that helps you more. There are times where the extra dollars will be very helpful. You can go underneath $0 to buy joker or buy a booster pack or something, or a voucher that can keep you alive. Most of the time, it doesn't do anything. So maybe F is too hard. We'll just put it in D tier. And in fact, just go ahead and think about this real quick. We'll go ahead and move the suited jokers down a tier, as well as Zany. Four Fingers, we'll move up 1. You know what? We'll keep the +8 molt. I'm gonna go to move the +50 chips for pair joker up as well to C, because pairs are just really good. Also, most things have pairs. You're playing 2 pair, 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, full house, 5 of a kind. You're gonna have pairs, so this just gets activated more. It's just kind of nice to have. No, that's not true. We'll move them back to D tier. All right, next up is another uncommon joker. This is our first example of a scaling joker, Ceremonial Dagger. When blind is selected, destroy joker to the right and add double its sell value to this as molt. So if you buy a $4 joker, it sells for $2. So when this destroys it, it will add 4 molt to the joker. Scaling jokers, generally speaking, are pretty good. It's going to be hard for a scaling joker to be below C tier, similar to how it's going to be hard for a times molt joker to be below C tier. So at a minimum, this is probably going to be C tier. Unless something is really wrong with this scaler, it's probably C tier. A lot of people don't like Dagger because it takes up 2 slots, similar to Stencil, where if you want times 2 molt, you need to essentially have 2 free slots, or sorry, 1 free slot, and then stencil. Dagger works the same way, except if you have enough plus molt and your other jokers are not worth destroying, you can just move dagger to the far right, won't destroy anything, and then you move it to the far left once you start playing. So because of that, it doesn't have to destroy anything. Also, it can scale pretty quick. It's not hard at all to buy a joker for $4, destroy it, and get +4 molt. We're going to get some other scalers later, but getting +4 molt per round easily is pretty strong. Obviously, there's some issues with it having to take up 2 slots, but you can build this up pretty quick. Early game, you don't need all 5 joker slots, so you spend the early game growing this. Not hard at all to get it to +30, +40, +50 molt. And after that, if you find good enough jokers, you don't have to grow it anymore. I'm tempted to put this in A tier, but I think we're going to leave it in B for now. We might come back to that one though, because it is quite fast as far as scaling jokers go. All right, next up is Banner. This is the first joker that gets really nerfed by the high stakes. So currently in Balatro, the blue stake removes 1 discard, and Banner gives you +30 chips for each remaining discard. On lower difficulties, this is +90 chips on all hands. As we were talking about the plus chips jokers earlier, we're hoping for 100 chips for a specific hand type. On lower difficulties, this is 90 chips for any hand type, which makes it pretty solid. High stakes, it's only +60 though, which does nerf it a lot. It does go for every hand, so that's nice. If you're trying to play any type of hand, you probably don't need to use your discards, which synergizes well with this, but +60 chips just isn't that much. Also, discards are very valuable. You want to be using them as much as you can most of the time. As soon as you add a single gold card to your deck, you want to be using all of your discards. You want to find that gold card, you want to find that steel card, you want to find the lucky card to maybe get money, obviously blue seals. So discards are pretty valuable. Negative synergy with discards is pretty harmful. Also, it got nerfed by blue stake, so unlucky. All right, we have another common, Mystic Summit. This gives you +15 molt when 0 discards remain. This is unconditional molt. You just have to get rid of your discards. So 15 molt is pretty good. We mentioned before, halvesies with +20 molt is very good. So getting +15 molt, and we can play up to 5 cards if we want, is quite nice. It's very helpful early game, keeps you alive. You do run into some issues with it though, where if you are playing, let's say flushes as an example, and you need to play 2 flushes, you've used your discards. So drawing that second flush is going to be harder. So people need to get better at selling Mystic Summit, because it's not really even a mid-game joker, but early game it carries you. It's always nice to get +15 molt. You feel a lot better once you get Mystic Summit. Gets you through the early antes, helps you build up some economy. Pretty valuable overall. Next up is Marble Joker. Marble Joker will add 1 stone card to your deck when the blind is selected. Stone cards, if you don't know, give you 50 chips whenever you play them. They don't have to be part of the hand to be scored. So if I play a high card, let's say I play an ace, and a 5 of clubs, a 3 of diamonds, and 2 stone cards. Will be scored as a high card. The ace will count, and then the 2 stone cards will also count, giving +100 chips. The stone cards are pretty good for hands where you don't need to play 5 cards. If you're playing pairs, stone cards really aren't that bad. Pair is a good hand type. So stone cards have some synergy with the best hand type in the game. The big issue though is that this is adding cards to your deck. Generally speaking, you want to be removing cards, so adding cards is going to be pretty bad. There is one joker we'll get to later, Hologram, which will gain X molt or times molt by adding cards to your hand, and Stone Joker synergizes really well with that. Outside of that context, there's a joker that gives you total chips based on how many stone cards are in your deck. That synergizes a little bit well, but only 2 synergies. One of them is with a good card, but otherwise is doing something actively bad, which is making your deck bigger. This is our first F tier joker. There are times when you can use it and it can be helpful, but most of the time it is not going to be doing anything at all for you, and should be avoided. All right, we have Loyalty card next, which gives you ×4 molt every 6 hands you play. So this is times molt. We know it's probably going to be C tier or higher. Loyalty card is on a timer of 6 hands. So if you are playing flushes and let's say you need 2 hands to win, that means every 3 rounds you will get Loyalty card activated. So you can time this up to basically be ×4 molt 1 hand against each boss. And then, it's not bad. It is a little hard to play with. You have to remember what hands you're on. You have to line it up correctly, and if you mess it up, you might just die. So it can be a little annoying to play with. ×4 molt is good. It is worth engaging with the mechanic to get this to work because the reward is worth it. But it is a little tricky. You probably would rather just have a more consistent times molt. But, ×4 molt against bosses is essentially what this does. That's pretty good. So I feel like it is at least a C tier. I'm just internally debating if I want to put it up in B tier. But I think we'll leave it in C for now, and we might come back to it later. But times molt, is good. And this is something you can do to actually guarantee times molt. So it'll be in C for now. That probably will move up to B tier later as we look at the list. Next up, 8 ball. 1 in 4 chance for each played 8 to create a tarot card when scored. So if there is an 8 as part of your hand that is scoring, you get a 25% chance to get a tarot card. This obviously can be doubled with Oops All Sixes to 2 in 4 chance. But let's talk about it. So this doesn't give you any points, but it does give you a utility, which is a random tarot card sometimes. How good is a random tarot card? Well, there are a couple tarot cards that are very good that can give you money, that can give you deck thinning or deck manipulation. But a lot of tarot cards don't do much, whether it be changing suits, and if you're playing pairs, you don't care. Wild card, glass can be nice. Generally speaking, there are a couple tarot cards that are really good, a couple tarot cards that do nothing, and then some tarot cards that are mildly helpful. All in all, the average tarot card is probably a slight boost to your run, and you only have a 1 in 4 chance to get it. So overall, it's pretty weak. Tarot card generation is pretty strong, but having to play an 8 is a little tough. Score an 8. Maybe you can get a lot of 8s in your deck and play 4 of a kind 8s, 5 of a kind 8s, but even then you're getting just tarot cards, which can be pretty good. They are very good for manipulating your deck and making money, but not necessarily as good for scoring. Glass and Steel can help, but this, for a Joker that doesn't give you any scoring, the utility isn't quite worth it. It's not, it's better than nothing. Like if you get it for free, you probably aren't upset about it, but it just doesn't do enough to really justify buying it. All right, Misprint is next. It is an early game plus molt card. It gives you plus a random amount of molt between 0 and 23. On average, it gives you 11 or 12 molt. So on average, it's pretty good. It's better than a lot of these Jokers as far as giving you plus molt. The only issue is that it's random. So it can give you 0, it can give you 1, it could give you 23, but you don't know what you're going to get. There's a neat trick where you can go look at your collection in your menu and hover over the misprint, and it will tell you what your next plus molt is. If you really want to go through all that effort, you can figure it out. Not really worth it. So most of the time, you're dealing with 10 molt on average, 11.5 on average. You just don't know when you're going to get it. So I don't really feel too comfortable putting it above a lot of these Jokers. So we're gonna put it in C tier with some other early game plus molt Jokers. You notice these are C tier has a bunch of early game plus molt Jokers, and then 2 bad times molt. So just keep that in mind. Early game plus molt probably in a C tier. Times molt should be better than these non-scaling early game plus molt, but it just depends on the Joker. Next up, Dusk. Retrigger all played cards in final hand of the round. This is our first retrigger joker, and I mentioned before with these suited plus mult jokers that retriggers are pretty nice. A lot of abilities that are on score are good because you can retrigger them. As a source of retriggers, Dusk, you do get guaranteed retriggers, although you have to burn hands essentially, which is burning money, $1 per hand. So you don't necessarily want to get rid of all of your hands just to get Dusk. It is nice as a last resort. It can go well with your lucky cards to maybe get you more money. It can go well with 8-ball to get you more tarot cards or more chances at tarot cards. But the fact that it's only for the last hand means it's a little weak in my opinion. I'm going to put it at the top of D tier. Generally speaking, I don't play retriggers as much as many people do. The retrigger jokers I just find a little bit weaker, and I don't really play around them as much as I probably should. So you might see me put retrigger jokers, except for one, much lower than you're used to seeing them, but we'll see. Raised Fist will add double the rank of your lowest card held in hand to your mult. So if you have a 4 in your hand that is not scored, so it's on your bench essentially, you get plus 8 mult. It's pretty easy to get this to be more than plus 10 mult. I would say maybe a 7 or 8 is pretty easy to get up to, so 14 or 16 mult. This works for all hand types, although it works better for some, in particular high card or pairs will let you throw away a lot of the lower ranked cards, so you are left with maybe a 9 or a 10. This can give you 18-20 mult. So this is quite a lot of mult early game. Plus 20 mult from halvesies here might be better because you can get it every time. But Raised Fist is very similar. It lets you play 5 cards as well. And you know, you're not limited to just pair, 3 of a kind, and high card. So it gives a little bit less of a reward, but is a little bit easier to get. Both of these are very strong early game and kind of they'll last into the mid game better than a lot of these other jokers. If you see an early game card up in B tier, it means it has staying power. Maybe not to Ante 8, but into Ante 5 perhaps. One really important part of Balatro is the economy. This is our first pure econ joker, Chaos the Clown. Chaos costs $4 and will give you 1 free reroll per shop. So quick math would tell you that is $5 per round that you have to spend on rerolls. But really Chaos is giving you your most expensive reroll for free. So if you're going to reroll 3 times, it would be $5, then $6, then $7. Chaos in that case will give you 0, 5, and 6. So he's actually making you or saving you $7. So at a minimum of $5 per round, that's pretty good. It goes up a lot of the time as well, so maybe it's more like 6 on average. The issue is that you have to spend that money on rerolls, which rerolling is one of the better things to spend money on, so that's not necessarily bad, but you probably would rather just have $5 than about $6 that you have to spend on rerolls. Economy is pretty important. Rerolling is very good. It'll let you find your replacement for Chaos, as well as fill out your Joker slots pretty easily. Rerolls in the early game are very nice because it gives you more opportunities to see these common plus mult Jokers that can get you to Ante 3, Ante 4. Rerolls are nice late game because it can help you find some of the run winners, some of the times mult Jokers. So rerolls are always good. Chaos the Clown is pretty strong overall as an economy Joker. I'm going to put him in B tier. Just because I'm not quite sure if he belongs in A, but I think Chaos and Dagger here have a lot of potential to arguably be up in A tier, but we'll leave them in B for now. Next up is Fibonacci. So Fibonacci is an uncommon Joker, costs $8, which is a little expensive, but each played Ace, 2, 3, 5, or 8 will give you plus 8 mult when it's scored. So it's on score. On score plus mult is much better than Joker slot plus mult because of retriggers as well as glass and steel cards. So let's say you play a pair of 8s. This is giving you plus 16 mult, not even considering steel or retriggers. So it's pretty easy to get 16 mult from this. Also, it synergizes with other jokers. It synergizes with re-triggers, glass cards, steel cards. Fibonacci is definitely something that I probably need to play with more. I think this actually can make it to the end game if you are, let's say, you're playing Dusk and you're re-triggering all 5 cards at the end of the hand, and you can actually get +8 mult 5 times, so +40, and then you re-trigger it up to +80. That's an insane amount of plus mult. I think this is our first A tier card. I definitely don't pick it enough. I just play a ton of pairs, so it's more like 16, maybe 32 mult, but it's pretty hard to get +32 mult. I mentioned before with Dagger how you want to scale it up to be above 30, and then you don't necessarily have to scale it anymore if you have good enough jokers. But Fibonacci giving you that on score, assuming you can get re-triggers, and there are common sources of re-triggers, is just really good. This is probably the joker I play with the least. That is very good. So I should play Fibonacci more. Like I mentioned, I don't play with re-triggers as much, which helps Fibonacci be good, but I can still realize that this is a very strong card. Next up is Steel Joker. Steel Joker is our first scaling times mult joker we're covering. This will give you ×2 mult for every steel card in your full deck, and it starts at 1. If you add a steel card to your deck, it will be 1.2 times mult. Also, this joker won't appear in the shop until you have a steel card, which is pretty nice. I mentioned before about how credit card's pretty bad because it takes up a slot in the shop when you don't need it. Steel Joker will only appear if you have a steel card, so it's never going to be in your shop taking up space, which makes it feel a little bit better. And in fact, it makes it a little bit better overall, because the percent of time that you buy it when you see it goes up drastically, because it only is going to appear if it's going to be worth at least 1.2 times mult. Times mult is important. It's very good. It's one of the main ways you win the game, so we know this is going to be at least in C tier. It's also scaling. So scaling times mult is super strong. Now, scaling based off of number of steel cards in your deck is a little slow. You have to get 5 steel cards in your deck for this to be ×2. ×2 is kind of the breaking point for when times mult really starts to get good. We're going to go over some ×3 jokers later on that are going to be in the S tier, in the A tier, and maybe even S+. So ×3 mult is kind of your dream scenario, but to get to that you need 10 steel cards, which is pretty hard to get. That being said, this is a scaling joker. It is times mult. Those two things combined make it at least B tier. Even if it is a little hard to scale, you have a couple different tarot cards that can help you do this. Death to copy a steel card, and then obviously just creating steel cards. You can get steel cards from packs. I think you can pretty comfortably get this to 1.8, 2 times mult, and it has potential to go higher. So ×2 mult on any hand is pretty good. Takes up 1 joker slot, so it's better than stencil, which is, effectively ×2 taking up 2 slots. And it also has potential to go higher. We're gonna put it in B tier. It does feel pretty weak for a scaling times mult joker. A couple of the scaling times mult jokers we go through are going to be much higher. So this being low relatively at B tier is because it does feel just a little bit weaker. Alright, next up is Scary Face. Played face cards give +30 chips when scored. So getting plus chips is quite good early game. Face cards are already giving you chips, so you're already trying to play them anyway, so giving more chips is pretty good. Plus chips isn't as important early game as it is getting plus mult. Also on score isn't as noticeable for chips as it is for mult, because there is no times chips or anything from like a steel card or a glass card, but re-triggers do make this better. A Sock and Buskin we'll cover later re-triggers all face cards, so you get +60 chips per face card. Early game, playing face cards, maybe you're playing a flush or you're going for a full house. Early game, you can probably get 2 face cards if you use all your discards to play it, so this is +60 chips. Almost a ×2 early game. You can get re-triggers to make this go up. You can manipulate your deck to make it more consistent, so it's not bad at all. I'm just going to put it in C tier though. It kind of feels similar to getting +3 mult on score for a suit. You're getting +30 chips on score for a face card. There are obviously 13 cards for each suit, then 12 face cards. So it's a similar amount of cards that are eligible. There's a little bit more synergy with face cards, though I feel like that makes it about the same, even though you might prefer plus mult early in the game. But, you know, +30 chips to face cards is pretty good. Next up is Abstract Joker. Abstract Joker gives you +3 mult for each Joker card. So when you buy it, if you have no Jokers, it'll be +3 mult, and then filling out your Joker slots to 5 will give it +15 mult for any hand. So I feel like this goes straight into B tier. Next to Raised Fist, next to Halvesies, next to Mystic Summit. It is just a nice source of plus mult early in the game that 15 mult's not bad at all. You can kind of hold on to it for a little bit longer than you would think. You get a negative, it's up to +18. But any hand type, 15 mult is just very good early game. And it can last a little bit longer than some of these other Jokers, which you might ditch for Ante's, 3 and 4. Alright, here's another Joker that gets nerfed by Gold Stake. Delayed Gratification. Earn $2 per discard if you don't use any discards. So on lower stakes, this is $6 per round, which is pretty good. On Gold Stake, it's only $4 per round. I mentioned before how as soon as you get a gold card or a blue seal, you're going to want to use your discards. You may need to use your discards anyway, just to score enough points to win. So if you have a gold card in your deck, drawing that gold card is worth $3. So as soon as you have 2 gold cards, you're probably going to be getting $3 if you use your discards. So it's pretty quick to outpace this. $4, if you're playing early game and you have a source of plus mult and you can play pairs, then yeah, this is a free $4 per hand. But you kind of need your discards early game to score points, and you kind of need your discards late game to get your blue seals and your gold cards, and maybe still to score points. So not being able to use your discards just for $4 is pretty weak. So Delayed Gratification is going in the D tier. Next up, Hack. This will re-trigger each play 2, 3, 4, or 5. I mentioned before how I don't play with re-triggers as much as I should. I think most of the time that I see Hack, I'm already doing something different. I've already deleted some of my 2s or my 3s. My deck already is set up in a way, and I'm playing in a way that Hack does not fit in. If I saw Hack early in a run, I definitely would take it and try and build around it. But re-triggers on their own, especially for 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s, you're talking about an extra, 10 to 20 chips from these re-triggers, maybe even less. So on its own, it doesn't do much, but re-triggers synergize very well with other things. Obviously, Fibonacci comes to mind with re-triggering, especially because Fibonacci has, 2s, 3s, and 5s. So, these share everything except a 4. So if you have a 2, 3, or 5, Hack will re-trigger that, get you more plus mult. It will also work well with Odd Todd and Even Steven for getting your chips or plus mult from those cards as well. So re-triggers are pretty good. On their own, they don't do much, and a lot of the time, I've already deleted some 2s, 3s, or 4s from my deck when I see Hack. Or maybe I'm playing around face cards or just playing high pairs, and Hack doesn't do much for me. So, if I see it early, I'm going to maybe take it and build around it. All in all, I just don't play with re-triggers that much. Most of the time I see Hack, it's not even usable or takeable. But there's obviously scenarios where this becomes very good. If I already have Fibonacci and I see Hack, it's amazing. But most of the time I see Hack, and all it would do is just re-trigger a pair of 2s to give me an extra 4 chips, which doesn't do much for me. Next up is Pareidolia. Pareidolia makes all cards considered face cards. Actually, we're going to move Hack up and Dusk up, just because re-triggers have potential. But Pareidolia will make all of your cards considered face cards, which is pretty good overall. Face cards have a lot of synergy. We've already talked about Scary Face giving you plus chips for face cards. There are other synergies with face cards as well. Discarding them for money is an example. So getting the face card tag on all of your cards is pretty nice. If you really wanted to, you could just manipulate your deck in such a way that you go from your 12 face cards up to, 16 to 20. And then that's going to make Pareidolia not do too much. Also, Pareidolia doesn't help you score points at all. Even though a 2 would be considered a face card, it's still worth 2 chips. It doesn't give you 10 chips. And it doesn't really do much on its own. It synergizes well with other things, but you can kind of get that synergy from just deck manipulation. So it can be nice at times, but it essentially relies on you having another Joker to be good. And even in those situations, you can get this benefit from something else. So it's probably D tier, unfortunately. Next up, Gross Michelle, plus 15 molt, with a 1 in 6 chance that the banana is destroyed at the end of the round. So plus 15 molt means that it is at least as good as these other early game plus molt Jokers. Plus 15 molt, you don't have to use your discards, you don't have to have 5 Jokers, you don't have to play 3 cards, you just get plus 15 molt on any hand. Also, if it does get destroyed, it will spawn in Cavendish, which is one of the better cards in the game. So you can think of this a bit as a scaler, because you buy it and then, like I mentioned before, some people just hold on to Mystic Summit too long and don't sell it when they're supposed to. Well, Gross Michelle might force you to sell it by destroying itself, which will free up your Joker slot for something better. The fact that it unlocks one of the better Jokers in the game means that, I'm probably going to put it in A tier. It's the best source of plus molt in the early game because it will also lead to times molt later in the game, or at least a chance at it. Next up are Odd Todd and Even Steven. Odd Todd will give you plus 31 chips when a card is scored if it is an odd card, so aces as well as 3s, 5s, 7s, and 9s. Even Steven will give you plus 4 molt when that card is scored. 2s, 4s, 6s, 8s, and 10s, of course. So, plus molt early game is pretty good. These all give you, these suited, Lusty, Greedy, will give you plus 3 molt when scored. Even Steven gives you plus 4. So that's pretty good. Obviously, re-triggers are nice. Playing a pair of 8s in the early game, instead of giving you, only that times 2, now you're getting times 10. So, Even Steven is a huge jump in scoring early game. Late game, especially on gold stake, when you're looking to score maybe 1,000,000 points in a single hand, you actually are going to need chips more than you'll need flat plus molt. Plus molt on scoring is still good, of course, but chips actually become a little bit more of a hot commodity in the late game. So, going back to an example, playing a pair of 9s instead of 8s, you're going to be scoring the 18 chips, but this will add an extra 62 chips. So, 62 versus 18, that's kind of like a times 3, whereas Even Steven is kind of like a times 5 in the early game, at least for pairs. So Even Steven is much better in the early game, but Odd Todd scales into the late game better. It's hard to get good sources of chips, especially from Jokers. So playing a pair and getting 62 chips, or playing flushes or full houses and being able to get, 3, 4, maybe 5 sources of 31 chips is pretty good. You can get 93 chips on this guy depending on your hand type pretty comfortably, which is going to be a more noticeable impact to your scoring late game than the plus 12 molt would be. They both have their pros and cons though. They have a related card which just isn't as good, unfortunately, Scholar. So Scholar will give you plus 4 molt and plus 20 chips for aces when they're scored. The issue is that both of these cards synergize with 5 different ranks, whereas Scholar only synergizes with 1. So this is eligible for 4 cards compared to 20 cards for these two. There is some carryover. Aces are odd as well as, aces for Scholar. So Scholar plus Odd Todd, you can just get 51 chips and plus 4 molt for your aces and, build it that way. But the fact this is only eligible for 4 cards makes it pretty weak. Plus molt early game is good, but this is kind of not reliable to get. Jimbo is only $1 because you buy them for 2, sell them for 1, and you get +4 mult for anything. Getting +4 mult from an ace on a flush, you may not even draw, is about the same. So why wouldn't I just get the one that works for everything and costs less? Technically, you can get a lot of aces and make this better, and retriggers make it better, but still, overall, pretty weak card. Next up is the business card. Played face cards have a 1 in 2 chance to give you $2 when scored. We talked about Pareidolia, making all cards face cards. There are retriggers for face cards, which make this more likely to give you more money. You can also use Oops All Sixes to make this a 2 in 2 chance to get $2. Let's say you're playing 2 pairs. You can play 2 pairs of face cards. So, you play a pair of kings and you play a pair of queens. On average, this is giving you $1 per face card played. So that would be worth, on average, $4. You can get that $4 up with retriggers or Oops All Sixes, or just playing more face cards. I think it's pretty realistic to say about $4 per round. It's a pretty cheap card overall, costing $4. You only have 12 face cards in your deck, so maybe I'm a little optimistic with that $4 per round. But, this has potential to scale with getting more face cards, with retriggers. I think it's actually pretty good. Economy is pretty important, especially for gold stake. I think this is a powerful card. I'm tempted to put it in B tier because economy is worth so much. And I think there are worse economy cards that we're going to go over later. But for now, I'm going to put it... I'll put it in B tier. I think it's a good source of econ. Alright, next up, I might move a couple jokers around here. I'm going off the wiki order right now, or the in-game order as well. But there are a couple that are related. So these next two, as well as... Let's just move green joker over here. So these 3 jokers all give you more plus mult based on conditions. So you can have plus mult growing in 1 joker slot. One of the big constraints in Balatro is only having 5 joker slots. Especially once you get to Antes 7 and 8, that's one of your biggest constraints. Early game is just scoring. You just need to score more points. Late game, you want to have as much value in your 5 joker slots as possible. The scaling jokers are very good in Balatro, generally speaking. Supernova, Ride the Bus, and Green Joker all scale. Supernova will add the number of times the poker hand has been played to your mult. So if you play a pair 10 times, and then, or let's say you're playing flushes, why not? You've played 4 flushes so far, and then Supernova pops up in the shop, you buy it, you now have +4 mult in this, and then if you play your flush, it'll actually go up to 5, and you get +5 mult. So you play more flushes, you get more mult, play more pairs, you get more mult. You can actually just play hands to increase the amount of mult. Overall, Supernova is pretty good. It's a common scaler. These all are kind of the backbone for a lot of gold stake runs. You don't have a ton of economy, you don't have a ton of hands, you need to just be scoring points, and these help you score points. They get you plus mult early game, which is really good, and they scale. So late game, they don't fall off as much as getting +8 mult for playing a pair might fall off. The downside with Supernova is that you have to play a specific hand type. So it's pretty bad for pivots. Pivots aren't that common. Early game they are. You play flushes for the first couple rounds, and then you pivot to whatever the jokers have told you to do, essentially. So Supernova, it's a little slow to build up, perhaps. If you are playing, let's say, pairs, and you have some jokers that synergize with pairs to score you more points when you do play that pair, you may only be able to play 2 around instead of 3 or 4. So you can pay that extra $1 per plus mult. I mentioned before how Dagger is very easy to get 4 plus mult on it by paying $4 in a shop. Supernova is pretty hard to get +4 mult per round. You can get +2 pretty comfortably. It's also retroactive, so if you're already playing pairs or flushes and then you come upon it, it may already be at +15 mult, which these other 2 jokers don't have that benefit, but it is just a little slow. Ride the Bus is probably the best out of these common scaling jokers. It'll get +1 molt per consecutive hand without a face card. So as soon as you play a face card, this will go down to 0 molt. But each hand you play without a face card is +1 molt. So this can be any hand type. So if you're playing pairs or flushes, you probably don't want to play flushes on this, but if you're playing pairs, let's say, and you're trying to grow this, you can play high card to throw a few hands away. So your high card doesn't score many points. You can just play your ace, throw a couple face cards on there as a discard, and some low cards. And that'll give you +1 molt for $1, and it'll go all in one slot. So you can actually get bus to be 4 molt for $4 pretty easily. Each hand that you play that you could have saved would be $1. So it's not too hard to get bus pretty high. It is common, so you see it a lot. You can still use your discards and only takes 1 joker slot. So it's very strong overall, I would say. Supernova, you can still use your discards, of course, but Green Joker, you cannot. Green Joker will give you +1 molt per hand played, -1 molt per discard used. Starts at 0. So you are going to be playing hands, whatever. You can play a face card, you can play the same hand, you can play a different hand. You're just going to be getting more molt by playing hands. This is kind of a lot of people's introduction into scaling jokers, as well as maybe playing pairs, because you can get a lot of molt on one card. The issue, of course, is that you cannot use your discards, and discards are very valuable. I mentioned before, they're probably worth at least $3 if you can use your discards. It doesn't set you to 0, it just goes -1, so you can still use them, and it's not that punishing. But being disincentivized to use discards, which Balatro is a resource management game, essentially turning off one of your limited resources on the hardest difficulty, is not that wise. But it's very easy to scale up. It's common. It takes up 1 joker slot and gives you a lot of value. It's still good. I'm going to put it in B tier. Supernova might be A tier. I just think it's a little hard to scale as quickly as the bus. So I feel better about it in B tier. Supernova is probably better than Green Joker. Green Joker, you can throw hands by playing high card, which Supernova you can't unless you are just playing high card. So maybe you can get this higher, but this gives you discards. I probably prefer Supernova to Green Joker. Right now the Jokers aren't ordered in tiers, but I might come back and do that at the end. We'll see. Alright, after a quick water break, we're back, ready to go. You'll notice so far we don't have many Jokers in the S tier or S plus or A even. That's because a lot of the better Jokers are later on. With the in-game kind of dictionary, it has most of the common Jokers early, and then uncommon and rare Jokers, generally speaking, are later on. Uncommon and rare Jokers, generally speaking, are also better than commons. So we'll start to see it get a little bit more full at the top as we go on. Alright, so next up is Space Joker, Spaceman. 1 in 4 chance to upgrade a level of played poker hand. So we've dealt with the 1 in 4 chance before with 8 ball. How does a level up compare to a random tarot card? It's definitely better. It's leveling up the hand you're playing, which is nice. So if you are just playing pairs, playing flushes, playing straights, whatever, this will just passively be leveling up that hand type. Sometimes you might be playing high card to throw away some cards as an extra discard, and that levels up and feels bad. Generally speaking, though, this is going to basically let you keep playing the same way you were playing, but make it a little bit better. 1 in 4 chance is kind of rough, though. You can double it to a 1 in 2 chance with Oops All Sixes, but that's taking up 2 Joker slots to give you a 50% chance of leveling up your hand. You know, you're probably playing 2 or 3 hands per round. Even then, it's 1.5 levels or less. Normally speaking, this will get you maybe 2 levels up per ante. Not bad, and you don't have to change what you're doing, so it's definitely worth a Joker slot. But it's not so strong that I think it's going in B tier. I'm going to put it in C tier for now. It does help you scale, which is nice. But 1 in 4 Jokers, or sorry, 1 in 4 chance is just not that good overall. You know, even if you're playing a lot, like pairs is something you can play a lot of. Maybe play 4 pairs per hand. That gives you a 1 in 4 chance, or 1 activation on average, for +1 molten, +15 chips. If you're playing a hand with a better planet, like a straight, you can't play 4 straights per hand. You might just win if you play 1. Maybe you can play 2, but even then, playing 2 straights is kind of risky because you might not draw both. So it is easiest to activate with low-scoring hands, but those low-scoring hands also have the worst planets. It is good though. I don't wanna hate on it too much, but you know, not easy to activate, and you know, not super strong. But you don't have to change what you're doing, and it is a benefit and helps you win more. So C tier feels about right. Next up is Egg. This is an economy joker. Gains $3 of sell value at the end of each round. For economy jokers, I tend to compare them to Golden Joker, which is a common joker that gives you $4 per round. So Egg is only giving you $3 per round, and it's only when you sell it. So if you're getting $3 per round straight into your bank account, it'll help you hit your interest faster. So it can kind of snowball a little bit due to interest. So having it in sell value is bad in that sense. It's good, however, because of the Temperance tarot card, which will give you $1 per dollar of sell value you have. So you can build up a bunch of sell value on this joker and either just sell it for a big lump of cash all at once, or get temperance value, or both. Oftentimes what you're trying to do, maybe get 1 or 2 temperances before you sell it an ante 7 or 8 for times mult. Overall, pretty good. It's an economy joker. It works well with a scaling plus mult joker called Swashbuckler, which gives you plus mult based on sell value. And it works well with one of the better tarot cards in the game, in Temperance. It's not, you know, one of the best jokers in the game, but pretty good economy overall. You know, $3 per round with upside. So we're going to put it in B tier, which feels about right. I think some people might put it even higher. But for me personally, I don't want to have to rely on getting Temperance in order to make this good. Although, you know, obviously that's what you're going to hope for. All right. Next up is Burglar. When blind is selected, gain +3 hands and lose all discards. So on lower stakes, you would lose 3 discards and gain 3 hands. However, on high stakes, you're only losing 2 discards. Doesn't make the card better. You're still getting the same benefit of +3 hands, but it makes the downside a little bit less punishing. So +3 hands is really good for stuff like Bus or Supernova or Green Joker. You get more hands to get more mult. Also, hands are worth more than discards, so trading 3 discards for 3 hands is totally worth it, because hands can give you money, whereas discards do not give you money, if you don't use them, I should say. You can use a hand like a discard. So this is basically all around just good, and it synergizes with some good jokers. It also nullifies one of the bosses, which is the Needle. Play only 1 hand. This +3 hands will go after the Needle takes you down to 1 hand. So all in all, this is just a pretty strong joker overall. I don't think it's an A tier utility joker. Generally speaking, S tier and A tier is going to be jokers that can basically either be a game winner or, you know, do something so good that it enables you to win. Burglar might be that because it synergizes so well with some of the other jokers, but I think I'm going to leave it at top of B tier. I definitely would understand putting it at A tier though. This, you know, these 3, maybe even 4 with Chaos are high B tier. So you could put them in A tier. I might shift them up depending on how the tier list ends up. If I just have a ton of C and B tiers, then I'll probably move them up. But for now, we're going to put it in B tier. Next up is a card definitely not in B tier, Blackboard. Blackboard will give you ×3 mult if all the cards you have in your hand, all the cards you hold in your hand, I should say, are black, as in spades or clubs. So ×3 mult, I mentioned before, is kind of the magic number. That's often what you need or want in order to feel good about clearing the 8th stake boss. That can be up to 1.2 million points. So you need some times mult ×3 is usually what you're looking for. So any source of ×3 is going to be pretty good. We mentioned before with loyalty card, ×4 every 6 hands. Also goes well with burglar. We feel, it's a little hard to play around. Blackboard gives you less times molt at ×3, but is much easier to play around. Also, it's every hand, in theory. This makes 2 of the tarot cards better as well. The club and spade suit changes become much better. Even wild cards become a little bit better. This, you're tempted to play this with flushes if you're new to the game, and you try and just get 52 spades in your deck, and that's just very hard to do, and it's hard to activate this. If you're playing a hand that takes 3 cards or less, you can throw away some red cards. So even if you draw 2 reds, if I'm playing pairs, I can play a pair and throw away those 2 reds and activate this ×3. I'm tempted to put it in S+, but we're just going to put it in S for now. This is one of the most consistent times mults you're going to get. You're going to play a lot of hands with this if you're trying to beat gold stake consistently. Every time you see it, you basically are going to take it. At a minimum, you can play it with pairs and throw away your red cards. Slowly get rid of your red cards. It gives you a good direction to go on, and it's totally worth it as well with ×3 molt. Runner is a common scaling joker. Common and scaling, we like both of those things. It will give you plus 15 chips if the hand you played contains a straight. We mentioned before that Banner is not too bad on lower stakes when it gives you 90 chips. Runner, after you play, what is that? 6 straights, will give you 90 chips. And you can still use your discards. 90 chips, 120 chips, 105. Something around there is going to be pretty noticeable. You just have to play straights, a few times. Maybe 6 is more than a few, but you play a couple of straights, get runner up to around 100 chips. Then going forward, you have 100 chips on every hand. You can use your discards. There's no downsides. Straights are pretty good early game anyways, so playing them, not that bad of an idea. Straights are very strong. They're a little bit hard to play unless you have certain cards to enable them, like Four Fingers or Shortcut. So playing straights can be a little tough. You might just draw dead, like I mentioned before, having to play 2 flushes. If you don't draw that second flush, do you die? Sometimes if you have to play 2 straights, it's going to be really hard. You might not even be able to draw 1. So relying on straights can be tough. But playing a couple here and there to scale this up, pretty good. Plus 15 chips at a time feels nice as well. Similar to Odd Todd, late game, you kind of are actually looking for ways to get plus chips. If you get your source of times molt, then you probably are looking at chips. So playing straights to get a couple chips, those chips will help you early game, mid game, and even more late game. Pretty good card overall. It and Odd Todd, I feel, are the premier chips jokers for common cards. There's one more that we're going to cover very soon, actually. Next up is Ice Cream. Ice Cream is the first of the food jokers that we're going over. Food jokers expire, which means that over time they get worse. Ice Cream card starts at plus 100 chips, but every time you play a hand, it goes minus 5 chips. So you can play 20 hands before this goes extinct. You're probably going to sell it well before then. Generally speaking, food cards are pretty good early game. They also have the psychological benefit of making you sell them. People hold on to some of these common cards for too long. The food cards give you this benefit and then essentially force you to sell them, which is pretty good because it'll open up your joker slot. Plus 100 chips, not bad at all, especially early game. Like I mentioned, the magic number for flushes is 75 chips and ×4 molt. That gets you 300 points. Adding on 100 chips to that is more than a ×2 joker. So early game, it's nice. Late game, chips are good again. Mid game, this might not be doing too much for you. But overall, I mean, it feels right at home at the bottom of C tier. DNA. DNA, I believe, is the first rare joker we're covering. It's $8. You don't see it too often because it is rare. But if your first hand is only 1 card, so you play a high card, just one of them, you will add a permanent copy to your deck, and that copy goes into your hand. DNA is fun. It's very good for endless and seeded runs. Your standard 8 ante run, though, it may not be that good. You get it super early, you can pivot to playing Four of a Kind. Four of a Kind is a pretty good hand type. If you can play Four of a Kind, it's often worth it. Similar to straights, if you are able to play them, because the planet cards are so good, you should. DNA lets you play Four of a Kind. That's probably its biggest benefit. Some people will use it to like play flushes, which feels really bad. I mentioned before, you don't necessarily want to add cards to your deck. If it makes your average draw better, then it's still worth it. If you have one blue seal in your deck and you get DNA, how likely are you to actually see that? Well, you draw 8 cards out of your 52. Well, I guess 53 if you got a blue seal, probably. But regardless, you draw 8 cards. You can discard 5 twice. You see 18 cards. Maybe you're down to 48 cards. So you have a 1 in 3 chance. Is that right? No. 18. Yeah, no. You have about a 1 in 3 chance of seeing it. So discarding a ton to get your blue seal, you might get 1 more blue seal per ante. Obviously, once you add blue seals to the deck, it's more likely to draw them. So it can be good. Some people think it's amazing. It's not amazing. It doesn't help you score points. In fact, it hurts you. It gets rid of a hand, which is $1, but also one of your ways to score points. Black deck feels really hard for a lot of people. In fact, it is the hardest deck. That's because it has -1 hand, which is what DNA is essentially forcing you to do. You don't ever have to activate it. Maybe it's worth buying if you have extra money and an open Joker slot. But honestly, it's not that good for winning on Gold Stake. I should put it up 1. I'm tempted to put it in D just to make a statement, but it does belong in C tier because it can enable you to play Four of a Kind, which is good. But some people you'll see in like A or S tier, and I don't believe that. Like if you got it for a skip voucher, a rare Joker skip, and you get it on your first shop, then you can build your run around it, play 4 of a kind, 5 of a kind, then yeah, in that instance, it's very good. But most of the time, you don't necessarily need it. It doesn't help with flushes or pairs, which are the 2 most common hand types. I don't believe it helps with flushes that much. Maybe it helps a little bit. But, you'd ideally be copying your really good card, but it's hard to draw 1 card. So, realistically, you're just going to use it to make copies of kings or aces to play 4 of a kind, which is good. It's a good Joker. You can copy it with DNA, but I can't. I'm sorry, you can copy it with Blueprint, but I can't put it above C tier. I'm really tempted to put it in D tier, but we'll put it in C because it enables some good hand types. Splash Joker's next. It's actually a little underrated in my mind. It's only $3. That is the second cheapest Joker in the entire game at $3. I'm actually curious, how many $3 Jokers are there now that I think about it? Sorry, credit card's $1. I forgot. So Jimbo's $2. The chips. Sorry, the Jolly Joker and Sly Joker plus 8 mult per pair and plus 50 chips per pair are also $3. $3 Jokers, it's a little deceptive. They still sell for $1, so it's a $2 difference from when you buy it to when you sell it. So that's the same as a $4 Joker. But you have to pay less in the beginning to get it, so that's nice at least. But this will mean that every played card will count for scoring. So if you have a bunch of enhanced cards like Glass or the plus mult cards or plus chip cards, this will help with that. It will also help if you have golden ticket for playing more gold cards. You can toss a couple 8s in there for 8 ball. At a minimum, it's giving you plus chips. Maybe it's only, 15 to 25 chips on average, which not that much, but it does do some scoring and some utility. A lot of the time, the bad Jokers only do utility, and the utility isn't that good, or they only do scoring, and the scoring isn't that good. This does utility that is okay, and scoring that is not that good. So I'm going to put it at the top of D tier. I really am actually tempted to put it in C tier, because you can, trigger Odd Todd and Even Steven. But as I look at C tier, is this actually the same level of power as Hack or DNA or Spaceman? The answer to that is definitely no. So it does belong in D tier. I'm going to put it at the top of D tier, though, because I think it's a little underrated. All right, earlier I mentioned before how Runner and Odd Todd were the premier common chips Jokers. Blue Joker is the other one. So we're going to start it off next to it. Blue Joker gives you plus 2 chips for each card remaining in your deck. So you draw your first 8 cards from your 52. That means you're down to, what is that, 44. So that is 88 chips. So runner, you'd have to play several straights. That's like 2.5 odd odds. You can add cards to your deck, with DNA or stone cards to make the plus chips even more. That's not really worth it. You generally want to be removing cards from your deck to make your scoring more consistent. But Blue Joker just giving you plus 80 chips on every hand is pretty good. You don't have to play out cards. You can play face cards. You don't have to play straights to scale it. This starts at 0. This starts at 88. Very good common Joker. Gives you chips. It's like a ×2 in the early game, but you can keep it to the late game. Runner's probably the one out of these that you want the most, because you can scale it up to 120, 145, 135. Like, you can get pretty good chips numbers on this compared to the others to bring into the late game. But they're all quite good at giving you chips. Next up is Sixth Sense. If the first hand of a round is a 6 and only a 6, you'll destroy it from your deck and create a random spectral card. So it's similar to DNA in that you are playing with -1 hand, essentially, although a lot of the time you don't have a 6 to destroy. Getting rid of cards, though, is quite good. So getting rid of, if you could get rid of all 4 6s, that'd be pretty good. Realistically, you get 6 cents and destroy probably 2 6s, and then you sell it. But getting rid of 2 cards, not bad. 6 cents does cost $6, which is a little expensive, honestly. I think it should be 4, because it's not necessarily that good. So 1, it's a little too expensive for the effect. 2, getting a random spectral card isn't as good as you would think. A lot of spectral cards do nothing. It'll destroy all of your jokers to enhance 1 joker. Well, early game, that's not bad. Maybe you buy this early game and you can keep 1 of your jokers and give it polychrome or a copy of it. But a lot of the time, you're just going to whiff on your spectral cards. Some of them are insane. Getting a blue seal on a car. Immolate to destroy cards, even more cards from your deck beyond the 6s, as well as give you money. But, realistically, this just does not do enough. Even with a relatively powerful effect of card removal, I just don't think it does enough. It's not bad, so it's not going in F tier, because getting rid of cards from your deck is good. Getting rid of spectral cards is good. It's just only 6s and costs $6, and the random spectral cards aren't good. To give you a comparison, here's another $6 card, Constellation. This Joker gains 0.1 times mult every time a planet card is used. It'll start at 1. So you buy it, it's at 1 times mult. You buy a planet, now you're 1.1 times mult. This is a times mult Joker, and it scales. So far, our only other example is Steel Joker, as far as times mult that scales. Now, it grows twice as slow as Steel Joker. Steel Joker times 0.2 per steel card, 0.1 per planet. But planets are way easier to get than steel cards. This is an insane Joker. I am tempted to put it in S+. The issue, if you even want to call it that, is that it starts at 1. So early game, you buy a couple planets, you get to 1.3, 1.4. It doesn't win you the early antes. There are some Jokers that not only win you the early antes, but the late antes. Both of these Jokers win you mid and late antes. Starting at ×3 is also really good. It's not hard to get Constellation above ×3, though. Like we mentioned before, ×2 is what you're kind of going for, and ×3 is good enough to win. Constellation could get way beyond ×3. Blue seals are insane in this game right now. So they generate planets for you, which synergizes with this. Planets in the shop are pretty cheap. Planet packs are pretty cheap. Overall, it's just pretty easy to get this to that ×3 mult. You can get a lot of bang for your buck in 1 Joker slot. I'm going to leave it an S+ for now. Maybe we have to move it down later. But for now, it's going to be an S+. It's probably my favorite of the uncommon Jokers. I don't know if favorite is actually the right word. but it's probably the best. There's some competition, though, that will probably also end up in the S+ tier. All right, next up, Hiker. Every played card permanently gains +5 chips when scored. So this is a chips scaling joker. It is uncommon. It's only $5, though. Getting +5 chips after you score a card, it's a little slow to build up, if I'm honest with you. Let's say you get Hiker early in the game and you're going to focus on playing high cards. You know, you're playing pairs, so you want to play your face cards and aces. You're only scoring 2 cards at a time, so that's +10 chips. Maybe you do that 2 or 3 times, so +20, +30 chips per round. Do that a few times, but it's spread out over some over some cards. Maybe you can play flushes, which is plus, 5 times 5, 25 chips. Play 2 or 3 flushes, you can get 50 chips. So you can get chips. You can try your best to concentrate them on certain cards. Chips scale well into the late game. It's just a little bit slow. Re-triggers will help with this. Splash will help with this. But the big thing about Hiker is that it gives you a benefit without using a Joker slot, which is very valuable. In-game Joker slots are probably your biggest constraints. So getting a benefit from a Joker without using a Joker slot is really, really good. Something like Supernova scaling before you buy it makes it quite good. Hiker, you get the plus chips on the cards, you sell Hiker, and those cards still have those extra chips. So that is a very nice benefit of it. You can essentially get a 6th Joker if you have Hiker and then sell it. That 6th Joker is just a little weak. So, it's worth it to buy it early in the game, get some extra chips here and there. Maybe you can double your chips on average from your cards, but your cards aren't your main source of chips anyway, So you get some re-triggers in there. Maybe your ace can go from 11, you're paying a pair of aces, instead of it being 22 chips from cards, maybe you can get up to 50 chips from cards. That'd be pretty hard to do and not super impactful, but it doesn't take up a Joker slot once you sell it. So that's nice at least. But yeah, just a weak benefit overall, unfortunately. Maybe if it gave the +5 chips prior to scoring, that would be a little bit better. But it probably needs to give more than 5 chips. 10 feels like too much. So I don't know what the proper balance for Hiker is. It's already kind of cheap. So, just a tough spot to be in. Next up is Faceless Joker. This gives you $5 if you discard 3 or more face cards. $5 is a lot. It goes straight to your bank account, essentially. So it's not like Chaos where you have to use the money on rerolls. You actually can use it on whatever. It goes in before the round ends, so it might help you with interest. Generally speaking, you should be able to do this once, maybe twice, but probably once per hand or per round. So getting an extra $5 is pretty good. I'm going to put it in B tier. It obviously goes with Pareidolia quite well. I've seen a lot of people rank it pretty low, but money is very good. And if you are playing a hand that cares less about what cards you play, such as pairs, then it becomes even easier to discard face cards. If you're playing flushes and you need 5 of your 8 drawn cards to be the same suit, it can be pretty hard to get this to activate. So if someone's playing flushes a lot, they probably have it in C or D tier. But once you start playing high card or pairs, start getting better at deck manipulation, Faceless Joker becomes a lot more consistent. And $5 per round is, it's just good. Like, I don't understand how so many people have this below B tier. You could even argue for A tier, but I'm going to have it in B tier for now. We're going to put it next to these other Econ Jokers, though. All right. Superposition is next. Superposition's a tricky card. Superposition will generate a random tarot card every time you play a straight that contains an ace. So your wheels and your broadways. Ace, king, jack, ace, king, queen, jack 10, ace 2, 3, 4, 5. Both of those played will generate a tarot card for you. I mentioned before with 8-ball, tarot card generation is pretty good. We've also mentioned straights are pretty good. So it has 2 pretty good benefits locked behind having to play a specific type of straight. Straights are hard to play, so having to play a straight with an ace is even harder. However, I think superposition is worth it. How worth it is it? I mean, I'm still putting it in C tier, but I think a lot of people will have this D or even F tier because they don't buy it and they don't activate it. There are a couple of things like Four Fingers, like Shortcut, that will enable you to play straights, and then you get the planet cards, the Saturns, which are so good. I think people should try and make straights work more often, and superposition is one of the cards that helps that. Because you're getting those tarot cards, you get more money, or you make your deck better for playing ace straights or scoring more points. It kind of feeds into itself. The benefit is quite good. I mentioned before, a random tarot card is slightly helpful on average. But when you can generate them, like, you'll get some power spikes. 8 ball, you get a 1 in 4 chance with an 8. Maybe you get a hermit, and that's a big power spike. Maybe you get, hanged man or death. But you can get them more consistently with superposition than you can 8 ball. So I think superposition is one of the more underrated jokers in the game. That being said, I still only have it in C tier. I just think too many people would put it in D or F. Its effect is quite strong. It's pretty strong. Tarot card generation is pretty powerful, which is why it's kind of hard to do. There's only one joker that generates tarot cards easily, and it's one of the better jokers in the game. All right, Cavendish. Cavendish is ×3 mults. That's it. There's a 1 in 1,000 chance that the card is destroyed, but you have ×3 mult on any hand, no conditions required. So it's at least as good as Blackboard, because Blackboard is ×3 mult, but you have to have all black cards left over. Cavendish is just ×3 mult on anything. So I think it goes up a tier. Constellation can go higher than Cavendish. Cavendish also requires Gros Michel to have been played and extinct. You can't sell Gros Michel or destroy it with a spectral card. You have to let it destroy itself. But Cavendish, obviously, very good. One of the more common ways to win a run. That's why you buy Gros Michel so much, so you can maybe get Cavendish to win your run. Another source of ×3 mult. Oh, also Cavendish is $4, so super cheap. But I mean, it's kind of hard to generate. All right, next up, Card Sharp. ×3 mult if played poker hand has already been played this round. So you're already playing. Skip to-do list, whatever. I'll come back to it. You're already playing. You're playing pairs or flushes. You have to play 2 flushes to win on gold stake a lot of the time. You're obviously playing at least 2 pairs. So Card Sharp is essentially a ×3 mult for free. Maybe you're playing straights and you don't want to be playing 2 of them, so you need to score all at once. Or you run into the needle, which only lets you have 1 hand. Or you run into the boss that says no repeat hand types. So Card Sharp gets nerfed pretty hard. In fact, just obliterated by 2 of the bosses. So you have to watch out for that. So you don't necessarily want to rely on it to carry your run. Like you can rely on these 2 X-Mult jokers. These can't really be shut down at all. Card Sharp can. Blackboard can sometimes, so you can get a little unlucky. Blackboard's more consistent, though. I probably prefer Blackboard over Card Sharp. But Card Sharp is probably easier most of the time. It's just those 2 bosses shutting it down is a little scary, and Blackboard doesn't have that. All right, to-do list. To-do list is interesting. You basically are only going to buy to-do list when it is good. I guess I should say what it does real quick. But to-do list gives you $4 per poker hand that you play that matches the poker hand on the to-do list. So when you see in the shop and it says earn $4 per high card played, you can just play 3 high cards and then whatever hand you need to win, and you get $12 pretty easily. Then you keep it and see what the next one is, and then if it's high card paired, 3 of a kind, 2 pair, usually those, maybe flush, you have maybe 5 options that you can feel pretty good about guaranteeing. You can get money for it. Costs $4, you sell it for 2, so if you have the open joker slot and it has a hand type that you can play, it's quite good. Most of the time, one of those conditions is not true. You're going to see it and it's going to say play 4 of a kind, and that's just not going to be possible, so it's just a waste of a slot in your shop. Also, there are more consistent ways to get money. It has a bit of RNG, so even though like Misprint, for instance, has 11.5, plus molt on average for any hand type. We have it behind a lot of plus molt that is lower but more consistent. Same thing here. We probably want more consistent dollars, but sometimes you're going to buy it and it's going to be pretty good. So we'll put it, it feels like Spaceman to me. And these probably go behind the plus molt, sorry, the good chips jokers. I think C tier is going to be our biggest, which makes sense to me. C is average. What's not average is red card. Red card, as well as superposition, are probably the most underrated cards in the game. We'll see as I go through the rest of the list. Maybe I'll see another one that I think is really underrated. But red card is kind of counterintuitive. This Joker gains plus 3 molt whenever a booster pack is skipped. So you open a booster pack, there's a skip button on the right that you can press to not take anything. So why would you buy a booster pack just to skip for 3 molt? You know, we mentioned before, Dagger takes up 2 Joker slots, but $4 equals 4 molt pretty easily. Sometimes you get $6 for 6 molt as well. So you can stack up molt. It does take up 2 slots when you are growing it. So red card doesn't take up 2 slots, but if you pay $4 for a standard pack or planet pack to skip, that's your best option kind of, and that's for 3 molt. This does have the option to grow plus 6 molt per shop, which is pretty good. That's like as good as the Dagger. So you can grow red card pretty quickly, but it's kind of expensive if you're buying packs just to skip them. So most people think it's bad because you don't want to buy packs to skip them. So you would see it in D or F tier. Actually, maybe I shouldn't say most people. A lot of people have caught on now. The counterintuitive part about red card is that it actually makes your packs better. Because now every pack, you have a button that says plus 3 molt on all hands. So when you're buying that standard pack and there's not a great card, you can skip and get plus 3 molt instead of adding, you know, a random enhanced club to your deck. You can instead get plus 3 molt on all of your cards, and it's still on all of your hands, and it's still worth buying that standard pack in case there's, you know, a gold seal, a red seal, a blue seal, a purple seal, whatever, polychrome, whatever you're looking for. It's still worth buying that pack, and in fact, it gets better because now you get plus 3 molt for free. So you think red card's expensive. It's really quite cheap because you're buying these packs anyway. When you buy a planet pack and you don't see your Saturn for straights, you just skip. And you're going to skip anyway, essentially. Maybe you would have taken a random planet card just in case you played high card or pair one time. But like, you're not planning on it, and it won't make a difference, really. What will make a difference is now you get plus 3 molt. So it's a common scaling molt Joker. It's pretty easy to get up very high. In fact, it goes higher than Bus a lot of the time. I think it's better than Bus, but they're probably in the same tier. It's probably not S tier, but it is really quite good. It is also cheap. People think it's expensive. You're buying these packs anyway. Now instead of making, you know, a random wild card or changing suits in case you get blackboard later, maybe you can just get the guaranteed 3 molt from those bad tarot packs, bad planet packs, bad standard packs, bad Joker packs. You know, there are rentals in there, nothing good. Hey, now instead of getting nothing, I get plus 3 molt for free. You can, if you just used your packs normally, you didn't even change your decision making at all, you would get like 30 molt on red card for free. It's quite good. All right, another one that's pretty good. Madness. Madness, whenever a small blind or big blind is selected, will get plus 5 times molt more and destroy a random Joker. So this is a source of scaling times molt. We know times molt is good. Scaling times molt also. So far, our lowest times molt scaler is Steel Joker and B tier. Madness is definitely better than Steel Joker as well. So it's going to go higher, just to let you know. This is also the first card we've run into that is buffed by the harder difficulties. Once you start playing on the black stake difficulty and higher, there are Eternal Jokers which cannot be destroyed. So this is destroying a random Joker. Well, if you buy this early game and then you only buy Eternal Jokers afterwards, it can't destroy them. So you can play as normal. Obviously, you're a little limited on what Jokers you can buy, but it's worth the trade-off of scaling times molt. It also scales pretty quick. You can always buy multiple Jokers and just have it destroy one of them and hope you can live, you know, with the others. So, you fill up with some of these cheaper common jokers. You have your food jokers. You have Odd Todd, these inexpensive jokers. You can lose one of them, and it's not that big of a deal, and you still get the scoring from the other jokers. Eternals make it even better. I think on Gold Stake, it's probably an A tier joker. Sometimes you're not going to be able to buy it because it's late in the game and you don't have Eternals, and it's not going to scale that much. It'll only be 2.5, and you're relying on a different card that's not Eternal, and if it got destroyed, you lose. So you just can't buy it. Early game, though, totally, like, if you got this, if you skip for a rare and you get this, you feel like you've immediately won. So sometimes it can just win you the game. But it's pretty good, especially on Gold Stake. Next up, we have another common scaling joker. This is Square Joker. If you play a hand that contains 4 cards, you get +4 chips to this joker, and these chips are good for any hand type. So, you can scale it up by playing 4 card hands, and then you can play a 5 card hand and get those chips. It just won't scale when you play those 5 cards. +4 chips is not a lot. It grows pretty slow, but if you put the work in, it can end up being, comparable to these other plus chip jokers. It's pretty easy to activate too. Pairs are pretty good and synergize well with Square Joker. So, you can play normally, basically, and get a benefit for playing normally. It just starts at 0, which is pretty rough, because it does nothing. You get this, you think you want it early because it scales, but if you get it super early, you may not be able to buy it, because you might need those dollars to buy something that will help you win, at least immediately, and this doesn't help you win immediately. So it's a little tricky. I think if it started at, say, 44 chips, or 16 chips, which is, 4 squared, I think it would be a little bit better, because then you can buy it early and it'll still help you win those early rounds. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be better, but when it comes to chip jokers, I mentioned these are like the best common chip jokers, and they're all in C tier. Chips tend to come from planet cards, because I can get 1 Mercury, which will give me +1 molt, but +15 chips. So 1 Mercury will level up my pair and give me as many chips as playing 4 pairs, and then it also gives me +1 molt. So planet card chips just far outscale these common sources of chips, which is why they're kind of in C tier. It's hard to get chips from jokers, and these 4 do a good job at giving you those chips, and Ice Cream too. But, it's just outscaled by planet cards, which don't take up a joker slot. Alright, here's a uncommon card that costs $6, Seance. If the poker hand is a straight flush, you get a random spectral card. I mentioned before, 4 fingers basically enable you to play straight flushes. So if you have 4 fingers and you see Seance, you can think, okay, I can reasonably produce random spectral cards. The problem, which we mentioned with 6th Sense, is that random spectral cards aren't that good. There are a couple that are really good, but most of them are just going to be whiffs. It's super hard to play straight flushes as well. So this does effectively nothing. Sometimes you have 4 fingers, but then you're already using one of your 5 joker slots on a utility joker. You're going to use another joker slot on a utility joker that gives you random tarot cards. It feels a little weak to me. Sorry, random spectral cards. It's pretty weak. Next up, one of the best common jokers in the game, Riffraff. I'm just going to go and put it straight in S tier where it belongs. When blind is selected, create 2 common jokers. The common jokers it creates can be negative, by the way, but they also, other than negative, will have nothing added to them. No rental tags, no expiration tags. They won't be eternal. They'll just be a plain naked joker, which is great. Especially on gold stakes. You don't have to worry about rental fees. Common jokers are pretty good. The fact that it gives you 2, like early game, you're able to get a lot of these jokers in C tier. That will just help you win for a few antes. You can also get some of these jokers in A tier. Like maybe you get a red card or a bus or a banana. Maybe you just get an econ joker, like an egg. There's a lot of good common jokers that you want. At minimum, you can sell the 2 jokers probably for $4. You know, most likely they're going to have a sell value of $2. So at minimum, this is giving you $4 per round. I mentioned before, Golden Joker is a good joker, and it just straight up gives you $4 per round. These $4 come before interest is calculated. These don't. So this is a better economy joker than Golden Joker. It can spawn Golden Joker, can spawn negatives pretty rarely. It can give you access to some of the best jokers, some of the strongest jokers in the game early. And then once you have your jokers, you sell it. A lot of the best jokers are ones that you're going to sell. People need to get better at selling jokers. Riffraff is an obvious one where you sell it. A lot of these other jokers are much better if you treat them as expiring. But Riffraff, one of the best jokers in the game. You get this early game, you should win. Very similar. I mean, Madness, you get it early game, you should win. So maybe it should be by Madness. So maybe Madness belongs in S tier, but Madness actually gives you a detriment if you buy it late game. Riffraff, there's no detriment to it. Yeah, it technically takes up an extra joker slot, but like its benefit is so good. Yeah, S tier for Riffraff. All right, here we go. Another scaling times mult joker, Vampire. Every time you play an enhanced card, Vampire will get an extra 0.1 times mult, but it will remove that enhancement. All right, scaling times mult, we know the deal. We're going to start by comparing it to Steel Joker, which is the worst one so far. Still in B tier, of course. It's still good. Vampire, enhanced cards. So Steel cards are enhanced cards. This is growing at 0.1. This is growing at 0.2. There are more enhanced cards than there are Steel cards, obviously. You can get your plus mult Steel, plus mult cards, plus chips cards. Those each are 2 for 1 tarot card. Lucky is 2 for 1 tarot card. So there are 3 tarot cards that can just you use, and you get plus 0.2 times mult, which matches the Steel. Obviously, Steel, Glass, Gold can also be taken away. Wild card as well. So it's a little bit easier to grow this than it is Steel card. It does make your deck worse, technically speaking. Sometimes you want gold cards and you don't want to like get rid of the gold. You don't want to necessarily get rid of glass, but it does give you a benefit at least. I'm going to put it in A tier. I think it scales faster than Steel Joker, but it's hard to get it to 3. You can get it to 2, which, you know, at that point it's feeling pretty good, but it's kind of hard to get it much higher. You know, maybe you get lucky and you get Midas Mask or a source of tarot card generation. But a lot of the time you're just going to get this to like 2 point something, which will be good. And it works for every hand, and it scales, and it takes up 1 joker slot. So, you know, it doesn't feel bad at all. You need some source of times mult. You basically are just going to take whatever source of times mult the game gives you, if I'm honest with you. Even if it is stencil, you got to take it because you don't know if or when you're going to get times mult later. All right, Shortcut is one of the better utility cards in the game. This allows straights to be made with a gap of 1. So you can play, you know, Ace, King, Queen, Jack, and then 9. You don't need that 10. You can have a gap. Also, another example, you could play like a 10, an 8, a 6, a 4, a 2, something crazy, and then, you know, an ace or whatever to complete it. So this makes straights super reliable. You can play 2 straights pretty easily with Shortcut. Similar to Four Fingers enables straights, flushes, and straight flushes. Shortcut enables straights, but it super enables straights. Straights have one of the best planet cards in the game. And if you have Shortcut, you can just play them all the time. And Saturns will give you a lot of mult and a lot of chips, and you have to worry less about scoring. So even though this doesn't help you score, quote unquote, from a Joker slot perspective, it does help you use planet cards which far outscale pair or flush. Flush gives you plus 2 mult and plus 15 chips. I believe Saturn gives you plus 3 mult and plus 30 chips. So twice as many chips and more mult as well. Straights are super good. This is also going to synergize well with our little tarot card generator over here. You get to play 5 cards, so good with glass, you know, good with enhanced cards, lucky cards, stuff like that. So pretty good overall. Feels right at home in A tier. Hologram is next. We've mentioned it a few times before with Stone Joker and DNA, but every time you add a playing card to your deck, this Joker gains 0.25 times mult. So it scales faster than Steel Joker. Uncommon, scaling times mult, so at least B tier. But adding cards to your deck, you may not want to do it, generally speaking. But there are a couple ways to do it that aren't that bad. You know, even this Stone Joker becomes way better with Hologram. It like moves all the way up to A tier probably. Hologram, you buy the playing card packs and you just buy whichever one looks best. Hologram works better if you're playing an easy to play hand like high card or pairs, because you can add cards to your deck. You don't care what you add, just add cards to your deck and it'll work out. I'm going to put it in A tier. It scales faster than Vampire in my experience. So I think A tier is about right for it. There's a voucher that will let you buy cards in the shop, which makes it even better. But yeah, a lot of times mult in one Joker slot. The only downside is you have to make your deck bigger, but that's not that big of a downside for pairs, which is the most common hand type for winning on Gold Stake. Alright, next up is a really good card that generates a lot of tarot cards. Vagabond. I'm going to put it in A tier. Sorry, S tier. Create a tarot card if you play a hand while you have $4 or less. Random tarot cards are helpful on average, but you generate so many of them, you're going to get the good ones. Another thing about it is that, you know, some people will stay under $4 forever and just spam tarot cards, and, you know, eventually you just don't have money and you don't buy a Joker, or you don't have enough money to reroll to buy a Joker and you die. Vagabond, you can, you know, when you get your Temperance into your Hermit combo and you go to $50, you can reroll, you know, you can play around with more than $4. You don't always have to activate this. You can have your $25 for a round or two to like smooth out your econ a little bit. Also, you can sell it after you've gotten several tarot cards. Maybe you've already deleted, you know, 8 cards from your deck. You've strength of several. You've deathed a few. You have your blue seal death twice now. So you have a thinner deck with more blue seals, more better cards on average. You can sell it. This is one that people probably hold on to maybe a little bit too long. It's $8, sells for $4, so it's $4. Generate 4 tarot cards. You could sell those for $1 each, and then you come out neutral. Vagabond's super strong, lets you warp your deck. You don't have to play pairs. This can help you play flush 5, flush house, 4 of a kind, 5 of a kind, whatever. It gives you the ability to play those harder to play hands that scale better. Also gives you econ, also gives you deck thinning. Just it obviously pairs super well with Vampire too. Enhanced cards, lucky cards are good. Super strong overall. I think it belongs in S tier. It's very good. I could see someone having an A tier because it doesn't really score you points. But I think the benefit, the effect, is strong enough that it belongs in S tier. Alright, Baron. Baron will give each king held in your hand a times 1.5 multiplier. So it basically turns your kings into steel cards. And it turns your steel king cards into super steel cards. You know, red seal steel, basically. Red seal steel king cards are insane with Baron. How many times do you have a red seal steel king card, though? Not that many. Obviously, if you're going endless, Baron Mime is one of the best ways to get super high scores and endless runs. But just for beating the game, this is adding 4 steel cards to your deck. It's not that good. It's a little deceptive because it has times mults, but the times mult it provides is right after the playing cards are scored and before your jokers are scored. So you might have a bus or a red card with plus 30 mult, or you have some common jokers, you know, you've got plus 20 mult or whatever up in your joker slots. That will not get times multed by steel or glass or Baron. So times mult you want on your joker and you want on your rightmost joker. So it goes at the very end. You want times mult to happen as late as possible. You want plus mult to happen as early as possible. So plus mult from on score effects is better than plus mult from jokers. Plus mult from planets is even better than that. All to say, Baron's not good in Gold Stake. Like, I've won a run where I got it early and got a couple kings and it actually helped. But, like, that's one run, maybe 2 out of hundreds. So, yeah, most of the time it doesn't do anything. Cloud9, uncommon econ joker. Earn $1 per each 9 in your full deck. So this will earn you $4 per round at the start, which compares very favorably to Golden Joker. It's the exact same. But you can obviously strength your 8s. You can death something into a 9. You can get 9s from standard packs. It's pretty easy to get this to $7, I would say. It feels like a pretty easy thing to get to. Strength a pair of 8s, and then maybe strength another 8, or death, get one death card or a 9 from a standard pack. Obviously DNA would be good with Cloud9, but it's probably the best economy Joker so far that we've covered, just because it does scale. You can make it go to $7, $8, $9 per round, which feels pretty good. There are also no downsides to it. Like, you just get $4. You probably don't delete 9s that often early game anyways, because they give you some chips, at least more than the low cards. You're usually deleting those low cards. You have 9s. 9s go well with Odd Todd. It's just good overall. Money is usually pretty good. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we move a few of the money generators up, but we'll see. Next up, Rocket. Rocket will give you $1 per round, but the payout will increase by 2 every time you beat a boss. So if you get this in the first ante, it'll give you $1 per round, then it'll give you $3 in ante 2, $5 in ante 3, so on and so forth. Rocket can end up giving you a ton of money per round. One of the downsides is that it doesn't give you very much money at the start. It costs $6. It's going to take a while to make that back. Probably 3 or 4 rounds. You're going to have 2 rounds maybe with $1, and then 2 rounds with $2. So 4 rounds in total to pay it back. Maybe you can do a little bit better than that. But it can grow so big late in the game that if you get this early on and just survive, your economy is handled. You probably want the most money the earliest, so this is obviously the opposite of that, but that's fine. It can give you so much money at the end. As soon as it's even giving you $3, it feels pretty good. The $1 for the first ante that you have it is tough, though, so you need to make sure that you survive. So sometimes you see it and you can't buy it because you just need the money. $6 is a lot early, and then it would be better spent on plus mult. Also, if you see it late, ante 6, it's going to be $1, $3, and then $5 per hand. That's not that strong. There are other ways to get $5, or maybe you just need more mult. But it is, if you can make it work, it's super strong. So it feels like an A tier to me, similar to Madness. If you can make it work, super strong. Or, works pretty easily and strong. So super, A tier, you can think about like run winning in the right conditions, or almost run winning most of the time. Alright, Obelisk. Obelisk is an interesting one. I think most people don't like playing with it. You get 0.2 more times mult every time you play a hand that's not your most played hand. So it encourages you to pivot, which is kind of weird in Balatro. Pivots aren't that common. But this is one of the reasons you would pivot. It's a rare Joker. It's $8. It's a scaling times mult Joker as well. But it's rare instead of uncommon, so it should be better than the uncommon scaling Jokers. And it is better than a lot of them. Most people just don't want to play with it, and they overestimate how difficult it is. Realistically, you can play flushes. You're probably playing flushes in the beginning of the game anyways. You need to find a way to continue to play those flushes, maybe for 10 hands. 15 I feel really good about, but you can probably do 10. And then you start playing anything that's not a flush. So, if you want to play just pairs, you obviously will need to play a lot of flushes, because you can't want to run just playing 10 pairs after playing 10 flushes. You need way more hands than that. So most of the time it's not going to go well with Supernova. But it will go well with, Bus, or obviously red card, or green card, green Joker. So it's quite powerful. I think most people just don't want to interface with the indie game. But, you should try it. Next time you see it, you should buy it. Play 10, 15 flushes, and then play any other hand. See how much times mult you get. See how relatively easy it is. It just does nothing for, 10 hands. Really 14 until it starts being noticeable. So the fact that it does nothing is why it isn't even higher. It does nothing for a relatively long amount of time. and then there's a risk associated that, you know, it's going to crash and go to 0 and then you lose. That's why it's an A tier, not S tier, though. Very good. Midas Mask. All played face cards become gold when they're scored. So this will help you get, you know, several gold cards. I've mentioned before, I think you want probably at least 4 gold cards. That would be ideal. 2 is good enough, honestly, but 4 is kind of what I'm shooting for most of the time. Just a good way to get money. Midas Mask is so easy to get gold cards. You know, you have 12 face cards. Let's say you buy Midas Mask, use it for 2 rounds. You could pretty reliably get 6 gold cards, maybe more. So you have it for 2 rounds. You bought it for 7. You sell it for 3. So it costs you $4. But those $4 is going to get you 6 gold cards. Like Hiker, this is another Joker that gives you a benefit without taking up a Joker slot. So you buy it for 2, maybe 3 rounds, get a lot of gold cards, and then sell it. And those gold cards are still there. So you only give it for a very short amount of time, and it gives you a pretty good benefit. It pairs well with Vampire, where gold cards are enhanced, so you can enhance the face cards, and then Vampire can take away those enhancements to grow. Pareidolia means that you can just turn everything into a face card and everything into a gold card once you score it, so that's kind of nice. But it gives you such a good economy, and you only have to have it for like 2 or 3 rounds. Then you sell it, and the benefits persist. It's very, very good. One of the best economy Jokers in the game. I don't think it's going to end up in S tier, but I think A tier feels pretty good. All right, next up is Luchador. This is a Joker that I barely play with, I'm going to be honest with you. If you sell Luchador, it will disable the current boss blind. Boss blinds are where you're going to die most often, and this is basically a don't die card. It's $5, you sell it for 2. The problem for me is that it takes up a Joker slot and only does something against bosses. Similar to Loyalty card, honestly. Both of them are like, hey, buy this to not lose to the boss. Loyalty card can do more. You know, maybe you can get to activate more. ×4 Molt should help you beat the boss. It should be enough. Luchador can get rid of, you know, it can prevent you from dying to a boss. So it probably belongs in C tier. I just, like, never use it because it does nothing so often. It is pretty good, though. I shouldn't say pretty good. It is good enough, though. You know, it does a powerful effect. It just, you buy it, and sometimes it sits there, and you never use it, and it just does nothing. But having an empty Joker slot also does nothing. So are you willing to pay $3 for your run to have insurance? I think you should be willing to do that if you have the open Joker slot. To me, it feels like Loyalty card. Makes the bosses easier. It's a little bit easier to use than Loyalty card, but sometimes you don't need to sell Luchador. Like, the boss isn't hard, so you don't have to worry about it. Or like selling Luchador doesn't help you beat the boss one hand faster for money, whereas Loyalty card might. So they feel about the same to me. I can tell you I don't use either of them all that much, though, because I like to make my average hand better, not necessarily have power spikes against bosses. That's just the way I play, but I can still know that these are good because they help you with bosses. Next up, Photograph. First played face card gives ×2 Molt when scored. So times Molt on score. This is happening even before steel cards. So it's basically turning a face card into a glass card that doesn't break. Re-triggers will make it do times Molt twice. This is essentially going to double your planet multiplier. So if you're playing pairs, those obviously don't scale that well with planet cards from a plus Molt perspective. But if you're playing straights maybe, or even flushes with +2 from the planet cards, Photograph will be basically a big plus Molt. You know, it's not that hard for your flushes planet cards to stack up to 24 Molt, and then this is ×2ing, so it's like +24 Molt. And then you can re-trigger it for even more, +24, then +48, and then maybe +96. So, is that right? I don't know. But regardless, it is essentially a plus Molt on score Joker. Those are pretty good. It works well with re-triggers. It's definitely better than a lot of these on score Jokers. I'm going to put it in B tier. And looking at this, like, I don't think we can have +8 mult for pairs up here, can we? I don't think we can. We might end up moving a lot of these early game plus mult jokers down. We'll see. We're getting a lot of the better jokers now, so it's going to fill out the top of the tier list. So I thought I was going to shift stuff up, but we'll see if I shift stuff down. But yeah, photograph on its own, maybe it shouldn't be in B tier. It is just a chunk of plus mult. And you have to play a face card, and it may not be 15 early game. So early game, you'd rather have abstract or raised fist, I think. But photograph has better synergies overall. So, you know, I think we're gonna leave it here for now, and we might come back to it. I will say photograph is part of a combination that a lot of players will rely on to win their runs because it is common. You can get another common card, Hanging Chad, and that will re-trigger your photograph multiple times. It's called the Photo Chat is the combo name. And a lot of players will essentially rely on that to win their runs. And then runs where they don't get Photo Chat, they just lose. It's probably because they're playing flushes, which scale the plus mult planets pretty well for Photo Chat. But like, I think that combo is very good. A lot of people rely on it. You can definitely win without it. I mean, photograph I have in C tier. Just talking about it. It does belong in B tier though. All right, gift card is next. Add $1 of sell value to every joker and consumable card at the end of each round. So this can give you, you know, plus $2 per round on, you buy a consumable, you let it go up, and then you can sell it. It takes a little while to pay for itself. It is $6 and it's $3 to sell. Obviously, you get $1 sell value each time. This is another thing like Midas Mask where we are adding sell value or adding value without having to take up a joker slot. So you can boost the sell value of all your jokers and then sell gift card, and that benefit will persist, which is nice for Temperance. So it's a pretty good benefit overall. It can make you a little bit of money if you want to buy and hold on to consumables, and it will make your Temperances better. It'll make your Swashbuckler better. But, you know, you're not always playing a Swashbuckler. It's not necessarily that good either. It's good enough, but it's not crazy. And Temperances getting better is nice, but you don't always get a Temperance every run. And maybe you only get one, and then it's an extra, like, $20, which is very good. But not a huge swing. The fact that it can give you a benefit without taking up a joker slot is nice, though. All right, here is another food. Turtle Bean. This is uncommon, $6. Plus 5 hand size, reduces by 1 each round as it spoils, essentially. Plus 5 hand size is nuts. That lets you get more gold cards for money, more blue seals for planet cards. It lets you play your straights easier. It lets you play your flushes easier, whatever 5-card hands you have, 4 of a kind. It lets you play those premier scoring hands easier. The issue is that it's temporary. So this isn't going to let you pivot to playing straights. You know, if you get a shortcut, you can start playing straights and scaling that way, and you're very happy. You have a clear path to victory. Turtle Bean can help you play straights, but only for 3 or 4 hands or rounds, and then you have to sell it. So it doesn't give you a benefit that lets you change your entire game plan. It does let you get more gold cards for a few turns. It does let you play higher scoring hands for a few turns. But if you get a late game and you're already locked into pairs, maybe you're locked into flush houses, and this helps. But it's such a good benefit that is less useful than you might think at first. I've seen some people have it very high. I'm going to put it in C tier, which is a little surprising because hand size is really nice. It's just the hand size is temporary, so you can't actually do that much with it. This basically is like, hey, have a couple more steel cards, gold cards, maybe a blue seal or 2, and that's about it. Like, you could play a few more straights than normal, so maybe you can level up your runner, but like most of the time, you're going to be playing the same hand you were playing before. Now you just have more hand size. It's very rare that this coincides with you pivoting away from something to something else. So it's a good benefit. I think people might overrate it because of that benefit. It doesn't enable you to do as much as you might think. All right, erosion. +4 molt for each card below the starting deck size. So if you have 52 cards and go down to 50, you're getting +8 molt. So this is synergizing with something you want to be doing anyway, which is removing cards from your deck. And it gives you plus molt in one Joker slot, and it scales, and it's uncommon. So it must be good. It's pretty good. I'm going to put it in B tier. You probably want to be deleting cards anyway. Maybe you're going to get just a free +16, +24 molt on this guy from playing the way you normally do. But it's kind of hard to make it have a big number. Like to get to +30 molt, I mentioned it's pretty easy on bus and red card. To get to +30 molt, you need to get rid of 8 cards from your deck. So that's, 4 deaths. Sorry, 4 Hanging Man, which it's kind of hard to get that. Now, you're going to be playing Hanging Man anyway, and you might be making glass cards to try and break them anyway. So, it is essentially free plus molt. It's also retroactive. You buy it. It doesn't get more for everything you destroy. It counts what you already have destroyed, which is nice. But it feels weak, It's capped, basically. Maybe you can get rid of 10 cards and you get 40 molts. But it's easier to get 40 molt on these other Jokers. It's basically free plus molts. Because you're already doing this anyways, but it feels weak. So even though it's an uncommon scalar, uncommon plus molt scalar, it's gonna stay in B tier. It might need to go down to C tier, honestly, because yeah, Steel Joker, Dagger are not Photograph even. Yeah, I don't think it's in the same tier as a lot of these guys. Early game, you also haven't destroyed cards yet, so it doesn't do anything. Like Abstract early game, Fist early game, Halvesies early game are just carrying you for the first few antes. This doesn't. You have to have destroyed a few cards, so it's kind of useful mid-game, but late game it gets outscaled, so it's just in an awkward spot. It's not like every time you see all 150 Jokers and you get to choose what your source of plus molt is. Sometimes you might just have to take it, but with these common Jokers, you prefer them a lot of the time. All right, next up, we have some economy cards coming up. Reserve Parking. Each face card held in hand has a 1 in 2 chance to give $1. So business card gives you a 1 in 2 chance to give $2 for playing. This gives you 1 in 2 chance for $1 for not playing. It's not as good as business card. You can play 5 face cards, which gives you $10 on average. Is that right? $5 on average, my bad. You could play a high card and have 7 cards in your hand for, what is that, $3.50? It's kind of tough to make this get as much money as some of the other common economy Jokers. Holding face cards in hand, though, you can kind of just get a bunch of face cards in your hand and spam out, 2 or 3 high cards and then play a pair of face cards to end it off. And you get some money that way. Money is always good. And this does get you money. I just don't know if it gets you enough money to be B tier. It feels to me like it is not as good. That being said, I think you can justify it being in B tier. We'll see. I'm going to put it at the end of B for now. Next up, this is definitely not in B tier. This is mail-in rebate. Earn $5 for each discarded card of a certain rank. And that card of a certain rank will change each round. So mail-in rebate will say, hey, get $5 for every 9 you discard. Then you complete that round, you get your interest. Next time it'll be a random 2, or for every 2 you discard. $5 is a lot. You only get 2 discards on gold stake. Lower stakes is even better. But you can pretty reliably get like $10 per round from this, which is insane. It gets better for you doing things you already want to be doing. You're probably already using strength. You're probably already deleting cards. You're already using death. You're consolidating your cards to certain ranks already. And this synergizes well with that. You don't have to go out of your way to make this even better. And it starts off really good. Probably the best economy Joker in the game. That's not a legendary. Even then, on gold stake, it might be better than that legendary for economy purposes. Maybe. To the moon. Earn an extra $1 of interest for every $5 you have at the end of the round. So, as an example, when you have $25, you earn $5 of interest. This gets you an extra $5. So that's better than Golden Joker. But you have to already have your interest. A economy jokers, especially early game, are nice to get you to make interest. You know, you get the mail-in rebate, and it's so good because it gets you to $25, which makes you even more money. To the Moon is almost a win more card. You already have your $25. Here's another $5. You get this early game, it may only be giving you an extra $2, $1, $3. It's a little deceptive. There are vouchers that can make you get more money from interest. You know, you can have $50 or even $100 to get more money from interest, which also means To the Moon becomes more valuable. But I think it's a little deceptive. I think people think of this as $5 per round, but it's only $5 per round once your economy is good to go. The other economy jokers help get your economy good to go faster. It is good though. Like, money is still good. I think this is our first C tier economy joker though. Oh no, that's not true. To-do list. Yeah, that feels about right. To-do list and To the Moon. They're about the same. Hallucination. 1 in 2 chance to create a random tarot card whenever you open a booster pack. Booster packs you want to be opening anyways because there are power spikes in those booster packs. Maybe you find a blue seal, maybe you find a gold seal. You have to be opening standard packs to know. Maybe you're going to get a planet card that's useful. You're opening planet card packs, and then obviously tarot cards can be good, so you're opening those regardless. Random tarot cards we mentioned before. Slight benefits. There are power spikes. This is basically giving you stuff for things you are already doing. I think it's B tier. It's nice. It's a nice common joker. Random tarot cards can be whiffs, but I think it's a good ability. Tarot card generation, we mentioned it before, pretty strong. Even if the average tarot card is, sorry, maybe I should say the median tarot card is only a slight help. There are some tarot cards that are so strong that the average tarot card is worth going for. All right, Fortune Teller. Earlier we went over some plus mult common scaling jokers. This is one of those. I tend to move it over because it's not as good. You get +1 mult per tarot card used this run. There aren't that many ways to generate tarot cards. Every time we run into one, we talk about it because it's worth talking about. But you can't really get a ton of tarot cards per run. This is hard to get to +30, like some of the other common scaling jokers. Like Supernova, it is retroactive though. If you've already used 12 12 tarot cards, this will have +12 mults. It just doesn't scale as fast. Also, it's not good early, so it's pretty hard to get tarot cards early on versus just playing hands early on. You can get Green Joker, Boss, Supernova to +4 mult, which should get you through Ante 2 pretty quickly. You cannot get Fortune Teller to +4 mult quickly at all. So it takes more effort to get off the ground, and it doesn't have as high of a ceiling. So it's definitely at least a tier below the others. It is retroactive though, and you can get, a chunk of plus mult in one card. So that's nice. This will be better than Abstract late in runs, but Abstract just carries you early game. I don't know. It's hard for me to put it much higher, even though it is a scalar. It feels right next to Erosion. All right, next up we have our Juggler and our Drunkard. So Juggler gives you +1 hand size, Drunkard gives you +1 discard. So +1 hand size is pretty good. It enables you to play those 5 card hands more often. It's easier to play a full house, a straight, a flush if you have Juggler or Drunkard, honestly. Juggler also will let you hold an extra steel card, an extra blue seal, an extra gold card. I would say that Drunkard is better. Discards are pretty good. There are a couple cards that synergize with discards, and discards themselves are a nice resource to have. I think I would rather have a discard than a hand size. Both of these are just good though. Like, if you have an open Joker slot, these are both no-brainers to buy. They're $4 each, so pretty cheap. You sell them for $2 afterwards, and you're pretty happy. I am going to put Drunkard with +1 discard in B tier, believe it or not, and +1 hand size in C tier. I think +1 discard is, I think that's a B tier ability to me at least. All right, Stone Joker. We'll do Gold Joker first, actually. My bad. Gold Joker earns $4 at the end of each round. It's $6 to buy, so, common sense, 2 rounds will pay for it and more, although you are losing some interest by buying it, so yeah, 2 rounds to pay for it. $4 per round is quite good. It's kind of the standard that we judge all other economy jokers off of. The dollars do happen after interest, unfortunately, so yeah, you pay $6, that's probably going to cost you $1 of interest, so this really costs $7, whatever. $4 per round, it's worth it. You get this early, you're gonna feel pretty good about your money situation. It's debatable if it's an A tier, but I think it's in B tier. $4 per round to use on anything versus $5 to $6, maybe $6 on average for rerolls only. It feels about the same. Both of these could be an A tier though, to be honest with you. All right, Stone Joker, plus 25 chips for each stone card in your full deck starts. And it only shows up once you have a stone card. So similar to steel card, you see this a lot less than most jokers, which means that the fact that you only buy this once in a blue moon, you only see it once in a blue moon. So you're actually buying it a higher percentage of the time than you would think. That being said, it's not super powerful. Plus chips is nice, and I've mentioned before, pairs are the best in the game, and stone cards go well with pairs. So you probably are building a few stone cards anyway. I would skip for red card over making a stone card, but you'll have a couple. The average run probably has 2 stone cards in it. This is just plus 50 chips on any hand. Once you get it, you can build around it, and it can be a good source of chips on all of your hands. Stone cards aren't that bad, but you don't want to be adding cards to your deck. It synergizes well with one of the worst jokers in the game, but that you get both of these, you feel better. It's still not super strong. Most common, you see this in the shop. Maybe you see it mid antes, and it's worth plus 75 chips. That's not bad. You can buy it, make another 2, maybe 3 stone cards, get it to plus 100 chips. We mentioned before, runner's pretty good when you can get it to plus 100 chips. Stone Joker is like that. Most people probably think it's F tier because they just never buy it, but you don't see it that often either because it's uncommon and you also need a stone card in your deck. So I think it's a little underrated. The fact that it doesn't appear in the shop is a big boost to it. But it's still not that strong. It's not bad though. I think you should be having a couple stone cards if you're playing pairs or high card, and then it starts off strong. You can scale it a little bit. It's not the worst. All right, here's another uncommon scaling joker, Lucky Cat. Lucky Cat gains 0.25 times molt every time a lucky card triggers. Lucky cards have a 1 in 5 chance to give you plus 20 molt, and a 1 in 15 chance to give you $20. So that's pretty good. So those are also separate. They both can happen. So every 5 lucky cards you play, you would expect this to go up more than 1 time. It starts at 1, and it's pretty easy to scale it. It goes well with re-triggers. I keep mentioning re-triggers are good. It's an uncommon scaling molt joker. I think you get more lucky cards than you do steel cards. Now, you have to have those lucky cards actually trigger, but lucky is pretty good. It's like more than $1 per time you play the lucky card, so it's good econ, and it helps you score more. I think Lucky Cat, probably an A tier. I really like it. I'm tempted to put it in S tier, but I don't know if you can get it to times 3 molt consistently enough to justify it being an S tier. It feels like Vampire to me, where both of these are pretty good, but it's just hard for them to reach times 3 molt. They both start at 1 as well. Like, Obelisk is realistically better than Lucky Cat. It's just harder. Baseball card. Uncommon jokers each give times 1.5 molt. So this basically turns all of your uncommon jokers into polychrome. Times molt, especially on jokers, is very good. There are a lot of good uncommon jokers. This joker itself will take up a slot to make them polychrome, but that's a pretty good ability to have. It can also make it so that your economy jokers, say Cloud9 or Rocket, also help with scoring. I think it's an A tier joker. you get it. You slowly just buy more uncommon jokers, which are good anyways, and then they give you more points. You probably are going to need a common joker for your plus mult. Honestly, the scaling plus mult is just kind of hard to beat. Dagger definitely can beat it though, but you're probably going to have 3 uncommons, and then this will give times 1.5 mult 3 times, which is pretty good. I don't think it's as good as just straight up getting the times 3 mult or the really easy to scale mult though. Bowl. Bowl is the best chips joker in the game. You get plus 2 chips for every $1 you have. So you have $25, you already are at 50 chips on each hand. Making more money is really something you want to be doing anyways in Balatro. So this synergizes well with that. You get $50 and you have plus 100 chips, and then it's already outscaling Blue Joker. Getting to $50 isn't crazy difficult. Bowl is basically the best scaling chips joker in the game. Maybe second best. But, it is still a chips joker. I do think this is our first chips joker in the B tier though. Bowl is like one of the few jokers that I can see end game that is not times mult that I think that can win me the game. It's still in B tier, Most of the time though, when I'm rerolling Ante 7 and 8, I'm just hoping to find times mult. If I see Bowl, I know that I can add chips, and adding chips in the late game can be equivalent to times mult. If you think about it, you start off with 75 chips for your good flush. Let's just say you are playing pairs instead. You level it up 10 times. It's like 165, 180 chips. All you need to do is get $90, and that's going to double your score. So this can turn into a times mult, and that's with level 10 pairs. All right, next up, Diet Cola. This is another joker, one of the very few that get better on higher difficulties. Diet Cola, sell this card to create a free double tag. If this is a rental, it costs $1 and you sell it for $1 and you get a rental tag for free, which is nice. Overall, you have to have an empty joker slot. So it's not giving you a benefit without taking up a joker slot because it has to be empty in order for you to actually buy and use it. But if you have that joker slot, you can essentially get a benefit without taking up that joker slot. Not as powerful as Midas Mask, but gift card feels about right. I may put it in C tier, but I want to put it at the bottom of B tier. Skip tags aren't as good as you think they are. Skipping is pretty bad. Generally speaking, you shouldn't skip. Like, generally speaking. Even for, like, a negative tag. Maybe if I had a double negative tag, I would skip. But, you don't want to be skipping all that much. The fact is, you get value without taking up a joker slot, so it's pretty good. Here is perhaps one of the best cards in the game. Trading card. If your first discard is only 1 card, destroy the card and gain $3. This is straight to S+ tier. One of the best cards in the game. Not only does it give you $3, it also will remove a card from your deck. So you buy trading card, you use it 10 times, you get rid of 10 cards, that's $30 as well, but more importantly, 10 cards gone from your deck. It isn't a run winner like Cavendish or Constellation in my mind. Like, both of these mean you're going to score enough points unless you get super unlucky. Trading card doesn't help you score points, but it makes your deck much more consistent. I know that some people, like I know Balatro University says this is the best card in the game, the best joker in the game. I don't know if I personally can go that far, but it does have an insane benefit. I'm tempted to put it just in S tier, but I'm going to put it in S+ just to pay respects because getting rid of a card is so good. It makes it so that you can play your flush house, your 4 of a kind, more consistently. Yeah, pair is the most common. Well, that's just because you can guarantee pairs. The consistency is high. Trading card, shortcut, these enable you to play better hands more consistently. So once that barrier of consistency is met, you just get better scaling. In addition to giving you better scaling, this also gives you money. So it's really a 2-for-1. If this gave you $0, then it would be S tier, only S tier. But I guess those $3 is going to be enough to take it up to S+ for me personally. Next up, JJ, the Flash Joker. Flash card. This Joker gains +2 molt per reroll in the shop. Rerolls are something you want to be doing anyways. Early game, you're not going to have the money to reroll when it's $5. You haven't got the voucher yet. Maybe you get Chaos and then you're feeling better about this. But this does catch up in plus molt pretty quick. If you didn't get a source of molt, scaling molt early in the game, and you don't find a retroactive one like Supernova or Fortune Teller, Flash card is pretty good. You want to be rerolling. If you have a good enough economy, you're probably rerolling twice, maybe 3 times. So +4, +6 molt without, having to do anything in the actual round. It's pretty good. It's just, it's a little expensive. So, it feels similar to Dagger to me. Both of these can get you the molt numbers you need. Dagger for a lot cheaper, but taking up an extra Joker slot while scaling. JJ, it just, you got to pay money. All right, here's another for you, Joker. Popcorn, +20 molt, -4 molt per round played. So this will give you 20. You get your interest, then it's 16. Get your interest, then it's 12. Not bad. Early game, you're pretty happy to see this. Plus molt early game, always good. It goes away, which is nice, so you don't hold on to it for too long, like you might, with your zany Joker or whatever. So that's nice. It doesn't let you misplay with it. +20 is really good. +16 is really good. +12 is pretty good. +8, you start to feel a little bit less. So maybe this is only 3 rounds that it buys you of life. But that's not bad. It's pretty cheap. $5. Sell it for 2, so cost 3. So actually, it's a little more expensive than some common Jokers. But it does its job. You know what you're getting into when you buy it. Spare Trousers. Spare Trousers. +2 molt if the played hand contains 2 pair. So 2 pair or Flush House or Full House are the hand types for this. This scales pretty well. It doesn't cost money to scale like the other uncommon Jokers. It just, you played 2 pair, you get +2 molt. If you get this early game, it feels like a run winner to me. Like, Bus feels like a run winner, Red Card feels like a run winner, but Pants feels even better than both of those. It scales faster, it does cost more, and is a little more rare, but they probably all belong in the same tier. It feels like the best uncommon scaling plus molt Joker. Yeah, it's not retroactive and it's uncommon, so you might not see it early game. But if you do see it early game, it's probably the best source of plus molt that you can get, which is nice. Ancient Joker. Each played card with a certain suit will give you times 1.5 molt when scored. So retriggers will make that happen more. This basically is turning your cards into polychrome if they're a certain suit. The suit will change each round though. But getting a bunch of polychrome cards, like if you're playing flushes, not bad. Pairs, obviously. It goes well with retriggers. Obviously, we talk about retriggers a lot. Retriggers are good. So maybe I should move Dusk up. But, we'll leave it there for now. This feels like a B tier to me. It's times molt on score, so not quite as good. But you can at least retrigger it. And you can build around it a little bit. The more of a certain suit you have, the more likely that suit is to pop up. So, it also goes well with Painted Joker. It's pretty good overall. You should be able to activate it most of the time to get a times 1.5 molt, which it's a little worse than Photograph if you only get 1 card. But if you're playing more than, maybe you play a pair and they're the same suit, you've manipulated your deck, or you play a flush or a full house or 2 pair, you can get more than 1 activation, then it'll pass Photograph. But they feel about the same to me, honestly. Both get better with retriggers. Both are times molt on score. You might prefer... It depends on what you're doing, which one you prefer, but Photograph's common, so that is, a big difference. Ramen. Times 2 molt loses times 0.01 molt every time a card is discarded. So this gets rid of discards, obviously. It punishes you for discarding, but in exchange, it gives you times molt. So unlike green Joker giving you plus molt, you're getting times molt, which is more valuable. Times molt is pretty good. This is times 2 molt. That's what you need a lot of the time to win, at least times 2 molt. If you get ramen, you can make it work. You can win with it. You would prefer another source of times molt, but you may only come across one type, and you might just have to buy it. Would I rather have no discards or one less Joker? Probably no discards. So that's why I think ramen is ahead of Stencil, personally. Loyalty card, I mean, it probably should go up one, but, you know, it is what it is. I don't like it personally, so I'm going to leave it in C tier because I'm the one making the rules. Walkie-talkie. Each played 10 or 4 gives plus 10 chips and plus 4 molt when scored. Scholar gave you more chips, I believe, but it's only for aces. This is for 10s and 4s. 4s you can re-trigger with hack. They're not part of Fibonacci, unfortunately, so you can't get walkie-talkie, Fibonacci, and hack just to pop off. But early game, pretty easy to play a single 10 or a single 4, maybe a pair of those, maybe a full house, including those. So pretty consistent to get the plus 4 molt, which is all you need early game. Get plus 8 molt for Ante 2, not too bad. So this is a nice early game Joker. It'll help you survive until you get better Jokers. Seltzer, retrigger all cards played for the next 10 hands. This is an expiring Joker. It's kind of a food Joker. Retriggers, very good. This lasts for 10 hands. It'll help you with your on-score effects. Retrigger is, generally speaking, quite good. This can be nuts for high scores with glass and red seals and all kinds of stuff. But at a minimum, it's helping you score more. Hopefully, it's helping you score enough that you are finishing rounds earlier and getting more money. But it's a powerful effect. Retriggers don't always help you, though. And the fact that they're temporary retriggers means you're not really building around it. But a lot of the time you just have things like maybe you just have lucky cards, and retriggering them is nice. Or you have on-score effects that you can retrigger. This is kind of a nice to have, but because it's temporary, similar to Bean, you can't build around it. So that makes it a little bit worse. Castle is a scaling plus chips Joker. You get plus 3 chips per discarded card of the specified suit, and the specified suit will change each round. Square Joker gives you plus 4 chips per hand, essentially. This is giving you plus 3 chips per discard of a certain suit. So this will scale faster than Square Joker. You only have 2 discards, though. Square Joker, you can get 16 chips in a round, maybe 12. This feels like you can get 15 at least. So it feels like it outscales Square Joker. Using your discards willy-nilly, though, like sometimes you need those to live. So maybe you can't discard as much as you might want, but it does scale faster than Square Joker, so I can't justify it being behind Square Joker. It just feels a little bad that it's uncommon and not that much better than these common chip Jokers. Like, I probably would rather have Runner, honestly. Blue Joker does more at the start. Ata does more at the start. This does nothing. This does nothing. This scales a little bit faster. You're not going to get nuts numbers with it, honestly. And plus chips Jokers, like, they aren't that strong. Bull is the only really strong one in my mind. Next up, Smiley Face. Played face cards give plus 5 molt when scored. So retriggers are going to help here. Face card synergy is nice. Plus 5 molt is a lot. That's pretty good early game. A lot of these are plus 3 for a certain suit, plus 4 for a certain type of card, plus 5 for one of 12 cards. Pretty good. Face cards are good. Building around face cards, not that bad of an idea. It kind of has a low ceiling, I guess. You know, there's only so many re-triggers in the game, and I don't know how much you want to be building around face cards when that can get shut down by a certain boss. But it feels good. Like, you get this early game, you know, okay, as long as I play face cards, I'm going to have enough points. Campfire. Campfire is a card that a lot of people think feels bad. This Joker gains times 0.25 molt for each card sold, and it resets whenever the boss is defeated. This card is a game winner. Now, I think a lot of people skip for free rare Jokers in the beginning of the game, and then when they get Campfire, it feels really bad. because you're not buying and selling anything early game. You don't really have the economy to fuel the fire. Late game, however, it's a free win. Like, you have this and you make it to ante 7, you basically just pay to win. Like, it will reset at each ante, so you need to save some money up from ante 7 going into ante 8, so you don't die to the small blind. But the small blind has the lowest scoring requirements anyway, so the fact that this scales to be biggest at the boss is totally fine. I'm tempted to put it in S tier, because if you do get it and keep it until even ante like 5 or 6, like, you're probably selling some stuff anyways. Buying a planet for $3, selling it for $1, $2 for 0.25 molt is insane. Times 0.25 molt is insane. So I think like this is one of the cards that you reroll and hoping to see it will guarantee you a win if you get it after you've already survived the early game. The fact that it doesn't help you survive the early game kind of sucks. But you know, not every card can do everything. The fact that this just helps you guarantee a win at the end game is really nice. Not hard to get it more than times 3 molt. So Constellation is so far, I mean, Hologram you can maybe get above times 3. Constellation, Campfire are like the two where you can go into the 8th ante boss with like more than times 5 molt sometimes, and then it's just a piece of cake. But because it does nothing for you early game, whereas Constellation does, also it resets, whereas Constellation doesn't, that's why it's going to be an S tier and not higher. Like, I could see someone putting an A tier, but I think it's just, if you can guarantee a win with this card. Trading card can't even guarantee a win. Now, it's super powerful beyond that, but like, just having this in certain, whenever you see it, you buy it late and you win. It's really, really quite good. Golden Ticket. Played gold cards earn $4 when scored. So this is on score. Retriggers mean this happened twice. Holding a gold card in hand is worth $3. Playing it is worth $4. Obviously, minus mask helps. Retriggers are where this actually gets good, though. But, you know, it just feels bad most of the time. Like, it doesn't seem to do anything. It can, you know, retriggers can make it better. Most of the time, I'm happy enough to just have the gold card in my hand. Like, yeah, you want gold cards anyway. Like, you're trying to add them to your deck slowly, regardless. So this synergizes with something you're already doing. Similar to this Marble Joker, similar to Erosion. It synergizes with something you're already doing. It's just the payoff isn't that good. So I'm going to leave it at the bottom of D tier. Probably better than Pareidolia. Pareidolia could honestly be F tier, but I'll leave it in D tier because it's a little helpful for some of the other Jokers. Mr. Bones. Prevents death if chips scored are at least a quarter of the required chips. So this is a times 4 molt against bosses. Hey, isn't that what Loyalty card is? Times 4 molt against bosses. Well, this also works against anything. So, you know, this is times 4 molt every 6 hands. This is times 4 molt when you need it most. So it's better than Loyalty card. It's pretty good. Mr. Bones can almost guarantee you a win. You know, you do have to beat both the ante 7 and ante 8 boss. So, you know, it doesn't like, maybe you waste this on the ante 7, you have to figure out how to beat ante 8. It does nothing most of the time, but getting times 4 molt when you need it most is quite good. Honestly, I'm tempted to put it in A tier. I think I'm going to be shifting some Jokers up, so we'll leave it in A tier for now. Times 4 molt is just a lot, and it's times 4 molt when you need it the most. Loyalty card, I keep talking about it. It needs to go in B tier. It's annoying to play with, yeah, but like times 4 molt's good enough to justify it in B tier. Acrobat. Times 3 molt on final hand of round. It's times molt, so it's at least C, like Stencil. You can get it every single round. It's just on the final hand only. It's putting a lot of pressure on your last hand. Maybe you get your hand and you just have to throw away 2 hands in order to get your flush to get the times 3 molt. So this is costing you money. You probably don't you would love to score these points earlier. So yeah, it's times 3 molt every round, but it's costing you money, and it's only once per round. It's not times 3 molt multiple times per round like some of these other ones. But you know, you can't be too picky when it comes to times molt. So we're gonna leave it in B tier. It probably belongs up here by Ramen though. Does Stencil belong? No, Stencil doesn't belong. You might need that 5th Joker slot. Alright, Sock and Buskin. Retrigger all played face cards. So this is one of the better sources of retriggers in the game. You can get more plus molt from Smiley Face. You can get more plus chips from Scary Face. You can get more money from Business Card. You can get more gold if you already made them gold with Mice Mask, and then you have golden ticket. You can get more times molt from Idol, and then obviously Photograph. So it's pretty good overall, honestly. Building around face cards is a little risky because there's a boss that debuffs all face cards, and then you're screwed. So there's certain runs where Sock and Buskin really feels quite strong. But most of the time, you're probably not playing around face cards, which means most of the time, it's a little too niche. So it's stronger than C tier, for sure, when it works. It just isn't always something you need or use. Similar to Hack, in my mind. It's better than Hack because face cards are more common than the Hack cards. They have better synergies at least, and you probably don't delete them. But both of these cards are like, yeah, you see them, you may not be able to buy them. If you get to work though, wow, they're really good. You can get some fun endless runs with Sock and Buskin, get some lucky face cards with, and then use Lucky Cat. But, you know, I think C tier feels right. It's strong, but you're not always using it. Swashbuckler adds the sell value of all other jokers to the molts. So gift card will help with this. Egg will help with this. Generally speaking, having more jokers will help with this. Unlike Abstract, it does not include itself though. Abstract, you buy a joker, that's one joker slot, that's plus 3 molt, just for owning Abstract on its own. Swashbuckler, if you only own Swashbuckler, it's $0. Most jokers probably that you buy are $2 sell value. So you buy 2 jokers, you have plus 4 molt on Swashbuckler. It's pretty weak. It is a source of scaling plus molt technically. You get gift card. If you get egg, then you know you can really do some damage. Most of the time though, it doesn't do enough, in my opinion, to warrant being out of C tier. Alright, here is an interesting card, Troubadour, plus 2 hand size, minus 1 hand per round. So minus 1 hand means minus $1 per round. Just want to throw that out there. It's one of the nerfs around DNA and Seance, or Sixth Sense. So you're getting $1 less, but you get plus 2 hand size. This will enable you to play higher scoring types of hands. So maybe you can use this as an excuse to be able to play straights or 4 of a kind or full houses or flush houses. You don't need to play as many of those, generally speaking, so the minus 1 hand isn't as big of a deal from a scoring perspective, so that's nice. And it can enable you to play those hands. The trade-off is pretty big, though. Like, minus 1 hand per round feels pretty bad. I think it is a big negative for a positive. Like, it is, if you got it for free, it would be worth it, but it costs $6. So that's expensive. Also, it takes up a choker slot. So how long do you really want to hold on to this? Maybe you can make it work, you know? You can use it to pivot to play straights, and then it's all worth it, you know? Similar to Shortcut, being able to play straights means you don't need as many scoring cards. You can get blue seals and more gold cards. So, like, there are definitely benefits to it, but the downside of minus 1 hand is pretty big. That said, I think the benefit, I mean, we're going to put it in C tier for now. I think it has potential to make a run work for sure. Like, a lot of these cards have potential. DNA, you know, it feels like a card that has obvious downsides, but the strength is better than it. And if you can mitigate those downsides, then it really starts to become above average. But only once you mitigate it. So C tier for average feels good to me. Certificate. When round begins, add a random playing card with a random seal to your hand. Seals are very good. Blue seal is the best, followed by purple seal probably, and then gold seal. Distant last would be red seal. So blue seal give you planets, purple seals give you tarot cards on discard, tarot card generation, very good. This also, you know, giving you cards synergizes well with hologram. If you're playing pairs, you don't really care what's in your deck. Like, you would prefer it to be thin so you can draw your blue seals more common, but hey, this gives you blue seals. It's pretty good. I'm going to put it in B tier. You could put it higher, because if it gives you, you know, a blue seal early, that is almost a run winner on its own. I think it's in B tier though, personally. Very good card overall. I'm buying it a lot of the time I see it. But if I'm playing flushes or flush houses or four of a kind, there's certain types of hands where you don't want random cards. So, you know, even if the random cards are good, most of the time though, you're probably playing high card or pair or something that doesn't care as much about the cards you receive. So the opportunity to get a blue seal or a purple seal, which can help you win the run, is well worth the cost. It feels right to me in B tier with some of these other, like a lot of the cards here, you can win a run with. They can be pretty big factors in you winning a run too. And I think that certificate fits in that mold. Smeared Joker is next. Smeared Joker to me feels similar to Pareidolia. This makes all red cards count the same for a suit, and black cards count as the same suit as well. So you can play clubs and spades all in one to get your flush. This enables straight flushes as well. It enables flush houses noticeably. It basically makes you play with the checkered deck, is what this card says. It says, turn your deck into the checkered deck, which is nice. Flushes aren't the best hand in the world. They don't scale very well with planet cards, given how hard they are to play. You know, they get the same amount of chips scaling as pairs do, but pairs you can play way more of. Chips are what you want from planet cards anyway. Like, yeah, the plus getting +2 instead of +1, I guess, is nice. It's not that big of a deal, though. Pairs are so much easier. I'd rather play them. So this doesn't let you play flushes. You can definitely get your second flush or your third flush. You can get your flush 5, maybe a little bit better. This probably is a flush house enabler, is the best way to play it, though. It gives you a benefit. It's better than all cards being face cards for sure. So we'll put it in C tier. Most of the time, it probably doesn't do much of anything. Sometimes it will enable you to play flush houses, though. So there's a niche build where this is really strong. There are less niche builds where these are, you know, where Talking Buskin is strong too, though. That's why it's at the bottom and Talking Buskin's at the top. The bottom of C tier, maybe top of D. Yeah, I mean, most of the time it does nothing, right? I don't play flushes like ever, to be fair. So it's a little worse in my mind. But yeah, we'll put it top of D tier. That feels good. All right, throwback. Times Molt Uncommon, Times Molt Scalar. So we're going to start it by Steel Joker, of course. You get plus 0.25, or you get 0.25 times Molt every time you skip a blind. It is retroactive as well. So, you know, if you've already skipped 2 blinds, I believe that you get 1.5 times Molt, which is nice. Problem, skipping blinds is bad. You don't want to be skipping blinds. Like, there's so much value to be gained from seeing a new shop that you don't really want to skip. In addition, you can grow your bust, your green joker, your supernova. You can get your gold cards. You can get your blue seals, your purple seals. There's a lot to be gained by playing the hand, much less seeing the shop. So this is a pretty bad source of Times Molt. Honestly, I think new players skip too much. Like, I'm tempted to make a point and put this in F tier. Because, like, at most, this can be 1.25 times Molt. Like, at most. Maybe you skip twice and get 1.5, but, like, you really shouldn't be skipping. This makes skipping better. So, like, you know, double tag makes skipping better. But, like, this is just, you can't get it to times 2 Molt. Like, is it worth it? I don't even know. I'm going to put it in C tier just because it is times Molt, but it's not good. Like, it is a trap. I never buy it. With that being said, if I never buy it, it has to be in D tier, right? Like, maybe I throw a Hail Mary out there and I start skipping to, you know, try and grow this. Any good skip I'm going to take. If you play where you always reroll until you can skip the first blind, this is starting at 1.25 for you, where it starts at 1 for me a lot of the time. So, like, maybe it's on average better for you than it is for me because you are re-rolling until you get a skippable first blind, but it's a trap, man. Don't skip as much as you are. The $25 in your first ante is good. Maybe some negative tags, maybe some doubling your money for $40, right? But leveling up a relevant hand type, there's aren't that many good skips. You probably skip too much, and that's probably why you think throwback is better than it is. All right, here we go. Hanging Chad, one of the best commons in the game. Is it S tier or is it A tier? This Hanging Chad will re-trigger your first card twice, an additional 2 times. So you play a face card with Photograph, you put that face card all the way on the left, and Photograph will trigger 3 times. You can trigger a lucky card 3 times. You can trigger glass cards 3 times. Re-triggers are good. This is a common source of re-triggers. You don't have to wait until the last hand. It doesn't have to be a face card. It doesn't have to be a certain, rank. Any card. You get 3 re-triggers. Getting 3 re-triggers on a face card, you have to play at least a full house. That's kind of hard. Why not just get, well, I guess 2 re-triggers. And they're all on the same card. So you get 1 really good card, you re-trigger it twice. Rather than playing a pair of faces and re-triggering them each once, you'd rather be 1 card twice. It's very good. It's common. It makes Photograph amazing. Like, is it S tier? Is it a run winner? It does so much good work for you. I don't think it can be an S tier, but yeah, it's an A tier probably for me. Rough Gym. Played cards with the diamond suit earn $1 when scored. So re-triggers earn more money. That's nice. $1 per diamond. Not that good though. Diamonds aren't that good because they don't synergize with Blackboard. Also, they don't have a very good uncommon gym Joker, unfortunately. Probably C tier. You playing diamond flushes, you get $5. Okay. Like, I guess that's nice, but it's not game changing. If these were $2, then you get $10 for a diamond flush. That would be noticeable. So $1 is just not enough. If it were 1 and 2 chance for $2 and it did oops all 6s, it would be a little bit better. Re-triggers kind of help, but yeah, it's just not that strong if I'm honest with you. Like, money is good, no doubt, but we're not talking about a lot of money here. So, not good. Bloodstone, pretty good. 1 and 2 chance for played cards with heart to give times 1.5 molt. So we mentioned before with the idol, times 1.5 molt on score, pretty good. This is nerfed to only be for hearts and only a 1 and 2 chance. You get oops all 6s, that becomes a 2 and 2 chance. It's pretty good. Without that, you can play hearts flushes. Like, if you get this, you're probably going to pivot and play hearts flushes because it's good enough for that if you get early. But it's not crazy. Like, yeah, we like the times molt, but times molt on score is essentially plus molt. It's just disguised. So we're going to put it at the top of C tier. These next 2 are pretty good. Arrowhead, played cards with spade, give plus 50 chips. Plus 50 chips on score is a lot. Re-triggering, obviously. You can get 250 chips for a spade flush. That's way more chips than we mentioned so far, right? That's even more chips than bull. You have to play spades, but you can re-trigger. This does get you more chips than bull. I feel pretty good about having this in the high B tier. You could argue with me if you wanted it in A tier, honestly, but it and bull are the 2 best chips jokers in the game. Bull works on everything, and pairs, if you're playing pairs with Arrowhead, you're getting 100 chips, maybe 200 if you re-trigger it an extra 2 times. 100 chips, still pretty good though. Bull, you need $50 to get 100 chips, but that's not that bad. So yeah, I think Arrowhead, it and bull are the 2 sources of chips in the game that are pretty good from the Joker position. Onyx Agate gives you plus 7 molt when scored for clubs. It's just a better version of, the common version, which is plus 3 molt. So, plus molt on score. Plus 7's a pretty good number. So playing a 5 flush is plus 35. Yeah, it feels pretty good. These all cost $7, by the way. But, I think that this feels right to me. These 2 in the same tier. I probably prefer plus chips, though. But getting this early game is so good. This can win you your first several antes, whereas this is better at the end. On score effects, we always like because of re-triggers. All right, Glass Jokers next. This Joker only shows when you have already, I think, is it when you've smashed a glass card? Or only if you have a glass card in your deck? Let's see. What does it need to do to appear? Oh, I found it. All right, Glass Joker is pretty good. You must have a glass card in your deck in order for this to appear in the shop. So most of the time, people think that this isn't that good because they don't buy it that often, but they don't see it that often. When you see it, you are in a position where you can actually buy it because you have to have at least one glass card in your deck. So let's go ahead and put it next to Steel Joker for now. Scaling times molt. Adding a steel card plus 0.2 times molt. Breaking a glass card, an extra 0.75 times molt. So this scales up super fast. You break 3 glass cards, you're already at 3.25. So breaking 2 gets you to 2.5. So this basically wins you a run after you break 2 or 3 glass cards. Getting glass cards is a little tricky, and you can't guarantee that they break. So, getting it to 3 glass cards means breaking 3 glass cards means you win, but it's kind of hard to break those 3 glass cards. I think it belongs next to Steel Joker. Like, breaking 1 glass card versus getting 3 steel cards feels about the same level of difficulty to me. Both of them can get high. I think with 3 triggers, you can maybe get Glass Joker higher. Glass cards, generally speaking, are quite good. Obviously, they help you score a lot, but also making cards glass so that they break and your deck gets smaller is a nice benefit. Doing that also makes this better. So making glass cards just to thin your deck is something that you should consider doing anyways. Like, a lot of people don't think about it that way. They only think about it from a scoring perspective, not a deck thinning perspective. So start thinking about deck thinning, start thinking about Glass Joker. It doesn't show up that often. When it does show up, it's pretty good. B tier. You can definitely win a run if you build around it. But building around it is a little bit tricky, similar to Steel Card, similar to JJ's and the Dagger. You can win, mine even. You can win if you build around it. It's a little tricky. You need some help. What won't help you is Showman. Showman lets you see duplicates. So normally if I already have a Glass Joker, I can't see another one. Showman means that they can appear in the shop. Showman's great for endless runs where you want multiple blueprints, multiple, of whatever. But for an Ante 8 run, they do nothing. From a statistical perspective, I feel like they do nothing. It feels bad when you see 3 of the same planet that you don't want, but I think the odds of seeing the planet you do want are still the same. Odds of seeing the tarot card you want are the same. So this is basically pay $5 to do nothing. It's an F tier, unfortunately. Flower Pot. Times 3 molt if the poker hand contains 1 card from each suit. This is one of the few jokers that makes wild cards good. Wild cards obviously help Flower Pot activate, but you need to play 4 cards, and they can't be from the same suit. So you can't play flushes or flush houses, which are 2 of the more common 4+ card hand types that are good. 4 of a kind is good. Obviously, if you're playing 4 of a kind in the early game, there are each different suits, but late game, as you strength and death, you might not be able to draw 4 distinct suits. It's already hard to draw 4 of a kind, then you have to draw 1 of each suit. So you can't really play Flower Pot with 4 of a kind unless you get enough wild cards in there. So realistically, Flower Pot can only be used on full houses and straights. Full houses are a little weak. Straights are quite good. Flower Pot essentially becomes a straight exclusive source of times molt. So times 3 is good, but you can only play it on straights, so you probably want shortcut. And you need to still draw well. So even though it is times molt, it's pretty niche. You have to be playing full houses or straights, or 5 of a kind, I guess. And you have to have your suits spread out. Maybe you can get some wild cards in there to make this a little bit more consistent. Times 3 molt is still good, but it's just niche and hard. So I feel like Stencil is better, personally. Blueprint. Copy the abilities of the Joker to the right. Straight to S+. This essentially is so flexible. I can copy Mail and Rebate to get money. I can copy DNA to get an extra card. I can copy Chad to re-trigger my photograph even more. I can copy my Source of Times Mult to get more points. You can do so much with Blueprint. It's the most flexible Joker in the game. Probably the single best Joker in the game, just because it lets you do your best Joker again. I think everyone understands why it's S+ and how good it is. Wii Joker. This is a rare Joker, $8. Also, Blueprint's the most expensive in the game at 10, at least for buying. Wii Joker. Every time you play a 2, this Joker gains +8 chips. Every time that 2 is scored. So, Square Joker, you get +4 chips every time you play a hand with 4. If you play a pair of 2s, you get 16 chips here, which is a lot. Also, you can re-trigger those 2s. You get Wii Joker early. This is definitely something you can do to get a lot of chips. Getting 16 chips per round, super easy. In fact, you probably want to be shooting for +32 chips per round. So that's what, +90 chips per ante, +100 chips per ante. So like you get this early, you're talking about 400-500 chips. It's very strong, like very, very strong. You have to be playing 2s, but you can strength your aces, you can death to get 2s. It's pretty powerful. It's a nice scaling source of chips. I think it's the best source of chips in the game. Sometimes you delete 2s before you see Wii Joker, though, and that feels bad. So I try not to delete 2s. I'd rather delete 3s or 4s, just in case I run into Wii Joker. Drawing a specific pair to play can be a little tough. Like playing any pair is really good. That's why pairs are so consistent. Having to play a pair of 2s, like earlier I said 100 chips per ante, that feels too high, actually. Because you need to also, that's like playing all 4 and or re-triggering. So maybe it's only +50 chips per ante if you build your deck right. But still, it's a nice scaling source of plus chips. It's just rare. You probably would rather see some other rares, but it feels pretty good. Maybe I should put it in A because it's so fun. I like it a lot personally. We'll put it in B though. Chips from Jokers, even if it is really good, it's still not amazing. Like you'd rather get some Times Mult. Alright, Merry Andy. Kind of the opposite of Troubadour. You get 3 more discards and -1 hand size. So -1 hand size can suck if you're playing a 5-carded hand. So your flushes are straights, that you don't really want this, even though you draw more cards, so you can guarantee it. If you're playing a specific hand like Flush House, even though you want to play 5 cards, this actually will help you get that with more discards, because you know which 5 cards you have to draw. You know that you have 3 9s of clubs and 3 jacks of clubs. So you know you just have to discard to draw those 6 cards. You need 5 of those 6 cards. So Flush Houses it actually helps with. Discards are really good. It's synergized well with Mail and Rebate, which is a common that you can get a lot of the time. It's synergized well with blue seals and purple seals. Purple seals get you more tarot cards. You get to see more cards from your deck for blue seals. Yeah, you have less cards to hold in your hand, but you only need 2 anyway. So, Merry Andy, pretty good. We're going to put it at the top of C tier. It could be B, but I personally think probably C. Alright, Oops All Sixes we mentioned a lot throughout the tier list because it doubles probabilities. So something's a 1 and 4 becomes 2 and 4. 1 and 3 becomes 2 and 3. 1 and 2 becomes 2 and 2. So it makes a lot of other jokers pretty good. The problem is if you look at those random chance jokers, none of them are in A, S, or S+. Lucky Cat's the only one. So Oops All Sixes most commonly is going to be paired with Lucky Cat. Both are uncommon though, so it's kind of tough to make that happen. So most of the time, you're just going to be making like a business card better, or like maybe not even doing anything at all. Like you might not have anything that this synergizes with. It's only $4, which is cheap for an uncommon. It synergizes with some cards that are average to above average, and it probably takes them all up a tier. Like Lucky Cat definitely is S tier, maybe even S+, if you have Oops All Sixes. So, you know, it has one really good synergy, and lucky cards are good, so synergizing with them as well. You will break your glass more often, which, hey, that can be good. So overall, you know, this is just a utility joker that enables a lot of jokers that are better than it to be even better. But taking a C Joker to a B or a B to an A, not that big of a deal, but still nice. Like, this is something you're excited to see some of the time. Most of the D tier is just like, I guess I can make it work. Like, none of these D tiers you're ever excited for. C tiers, sometimes you're excited for. B tiers usually you're excited for. A tiers you're always excited for. That's another way to think about it. F tiers you're never excited for. Maybe Baron shouldn't be F tier because sometimes it's okay, but yeah, I don't know. All right, the idol. Each played rank of suit gives ×2 mult when scored. ×2 mult when scored is the best we've seen so far. Photograph is ×2 mult when scored. But this is for a very specific card in your deck, like a 9 of clubs, for instance. If you manipulate your deck enough, then this will be very good because it's more likely to choose that card. In fact, I may have misspoken earlier when I was talking about the idol choosing suits. What is this called? Ancient Joker choosing suits. I think it actually just chooses a random suit, whereas the idol is based off of your deck. So if you have a lot of one card in your deck, this is really good. That's really good for endless. For us though, like, maybe you can get 3 of the same card in your deck, but 3 in 52 chance. Let's say you get 4 of the exact same card in your deck and you thin your deck noticeably and you get 4 for 40. 1 in 10 chance that card is selected would be really good. It's just not good for beating Ante-8s. Seek double, ×2 mult played. If played hand has a club and any other suit. ×2 mult is really good. You can use your discards. This is strictly better than Ramen. It doesn't go down. Yeah, you can't play flushes, but you can play a pair, get a club, and any other card, and you get ×2 mult. 3 of a kind, obviously, 2 pair. Like, this works with most hand types. And it gives you ×2 mult, and it's pretty easy. So I like it a lot. It's only ×2, so I don't know. No, it can break into A tier. What am I talking about? It's consistent enough that it belongs in A tier. Matador. Earn $8 if played hand triggers the boss blind ability. This is the most confusing card in the game. When does a boss blind actually get triggered? When does it not? If you play a debuffed card, usually you're going to get $8. Is the way I think about this. If a boss debuffs a card, you play it, you get $8. Not per card, but per hand. So debuffs hearts. I play a heart flush, I get $8. I don't get 40. $8 is a lot. Sometimes when you buy it, it does nothing for a while and just takes up a Joker slot. Costs $7 to buy, $3 to sell. So, you know, $4. Sometimes it's good. So we're going to put in C tier. It feels like to-do list to me. You know, sometimes you're going to get it and you're going to see the next boss. You can get a bunch of money, or you have the cash now and an extra Joker slot, so you might as well hold on to it and see what the next boss is. Most of the time you can't buy it. So, you know, C tier feels about right. Hit the Road. Hit the Road is a rare $8 Joker. This Joker gains ×0.5 mult per every Jack discarded this round. So it's scaling times mult. So we're going to start it next to Steel Joker. Scaling times mult. Every time you discard a Jack, it goes up by 0.5. Just for that round though. Not the ante, but the round. So let's say you get 7 Jacks in your deck. I mentioned, like, I feel like 7's a number you can get to. I mentioned it for Cloud9. I think you can get 7 of a specific card in your deck most runs. You get 7 Jacks. You can discard 2 Jacks per round. This is ×2, and it resets. Sometimes you don't draw those Jacks and you can't discard them. Sometimes you want to play the Jacks, you know? Like, you have 7 Jacks, what if you want to play 5 of a kind? It's just hard to make this work. It's pretty hard to unlock too, honestly. You have to discard 5 Jacks at the same time to unlock it. I think it was like the last card I unlocked. Yes, it's scaling times mult, but like the fact that it resets is so tough. You can make it work. It's not D tier. It's better than Throwback as a source of times mult. Because you can get it to, I mean, you can get to 1.5 every round for sure, which is more than Throwback will be, because Throwback should be 1.25 at most of the time. So it's better than Throwback, but you know, it doesn't feel good. We'll put it that way. You get a rare card in your shop and it's Hit the Road. That sucks. Next up are a bunch of cards that give you times mult if your hand contains a certain thing. So the pair is ×2 if it contains a pair. Trio, times 3 if it contains 3 of a kind. The family, times 4 if it contains 4 of a kind. The order, times 3 if it contains a straight. And the tribe, times 2 if it contains a flush. So times 2 if it contains a flush. That's the same as times 2 if it contains a pair. That's why flushes and pairs get compared all the time. Their playing cards give the same chips. A lot of their jokers do the same thing. Flushes are just harder to play than pairs. So why in the world would I want times 2 for a flush when I can get times 2 for a pair? Times 2 for a pair is going straight into A. It feels like similar to the club joker. Times 3 for a trio, times 4 for 4 of a kind. If you're playing 4 of a kind, you probably don't need times 4. Yes, times 4 is objectively better, but like this is almost a win more card in my mind. I feel like it's easier to get to make 4 of a kind work. Like this, if you already are playing 4 of a kind, you should be winning. Times 4 mult to that, yeah, it's a bigger number, but like, let's be real here. That's pretty hard to do. The trio with times 3 is actually nice. This is like the only reason some people play full house or 3 of a kind, because playing times 3 of a kind is not that much harder than pair, and times 3 is better than times 2 for sure. One of the more obvious statements I've said. Times 2 for a flush, kind of a trap. We're gonna put it in B tier. Flushes aren't that good, but times 2 is. This is one of the ways you can make flushes actually work. But do you want to rely on seeing one rare to make flushes work? Probably not. The order, times 3 mult for a straight. Straights are good. Getting times 3 mult for straights feels good to me, man. Alright, Stuntman. This is a fun one. Plus 250 chips, minus 2 hand size. So 250 chips is a lot. Minus 2 hand size, not that bad unless you're playing a 5 card or 4 card hand. So if you're playing 3 of a kind, high card, pair, maybe 2 pair, Stuntman does nothing bad for you. It just gives you 250 chips. Stuntman's one of the cards that first made me start realizing how good pairs are. So I have to thank it for that. Plus 250 chips is like, it's basically a times 2 by the end of the round. So, you know, Duo and the club card here, whose name I forget all the time, Sing Double. Both of those are times 2, but they don't have downsides. Minus 2 hand size is a real downside, so I feel like it needs to be a tier lower, but we'll put it in B tier for now. Supernova is probably the best of these B tier cards, right? Let's see. Some of these are just much better than others, so let's reorder these a little bit. Oh, this is probably the best B tier. Okay. Invisible Joker. After 2 rounds, sell this card to duplicate a random Joker. If it's negative, it does not. Invisible Joker won't become negative, unfortunately. So, this is similar to Blueprint. It lets you get another of your best Jokers. If you want to guarantee the Joker, though, you have to sell all of yours. Realistically, you're going to sell your okay Jokers and have 2 or 3 good Jokers that you don't mind copying. Maybe 2 really good Jokers you wanted to copy, and then a Joker, like trading card you don't want to get rid of but don't want to copy. So you have like a 2/3 chance of getting another good, really good Joker. It does take up a Joker slot and do nothing for 2 rounds though. So I think it belongs in A tier. It doesn't straight copy anything. You can't guarantee it, but you're happy to see it, that's for sure. Most of these A tiers, like if I get an A tier early in the run, I feel like I should win. Like if I get an A tier, I feel like I should win. S tier, I definitely should win. S plus, like if I don't win, no, I gotta reconsider. Brainstorm's next. Copies the abilities of the leftmost Joker. Brainstorm, the only debate is if it is an S or S plus, because it does the same thing as Blueprint, but copying the leftmost Joker is worse. The reason is that the leftmost Joker acts first. So your times mult, you want to be on the far right. So this just makes it so that your times mult isn't optimal. The fact of the matter is it can still copy like economy Jokers, chips Jokers. Copying them does the exact same thing. And like, yeah, your times mult might be, you know, not quite as efficient as Blueprint, but I don't think that's enough of a reason for me to drop it an entire another tier, personally. I could see someone saying it's an S just to like let people know, hey, it is worse than Blueprint. But, you know, I don't think that you can justify that personally. Satellite. Earn $1 at the end of the round for each unique planet card used this run. So it's pretty easy to get Satellite to be the $4 that Golden Joker is, but it starts at 0. So in order to get Satellite up to where Golden Joker is, you have to buy planets that you won't use. Obviously, this goes well with Constellation, but I think I'd much rather just have Golden Joker. Yeah, I can grow this to be more. Like, I can get $6, $7, $8 from it. But because it, like, starts at, like, essentially $1 or $2 maybe, and I have to invest in random planet cards, like, it makes the random planet pack better, I guess. But, you know, to the moon, yeah, feels about right. I think I'd rather have to-do list, right? I don't know. It depends. Satellite, it's okay. You know, $2 per round feels like nothing. You buy it for $6 and you get $2 for a few rounds. But you can buy a couple planets, make it better. You eventually sell it, so you've wasted those planets. Buying a planet takes 3 turns to make its money back. You know, it doesn't feel that good when I'm playing with it. Sometimes to-do list feels amazing. Do I drop this actually? Because $5 sometimes, yeah, this might go in D tier, honestly. It might belong in D tier. Shoot the Moon. Each queen held in hand gives plus 13 molt. Plus 13 molt's pretty good. Compare that to some of the early game jokers, plus 15, plus 20, plus 10, plus 14 or so. So plus 13 molt's good. You have to draw the queen, but early game, it gives you enough molt that you can survive. So it gives you enough molt to survive early game, and then it also gives you something to strength to, something to death. Gives you a little bit of a direction, you know, get some more queens to essentially win more, I guess. I don't know. It feels okay to me. It's good enough early game. That I think it belongs, you know, it belongs next to these guys. It does a similar thing to them. It has some potential to be a little bit better. It's a little harder to activate, though. You have to actually draw a queen for this to do something. You aren't guaranteed to draw any queens. You could very well not draw any, and then it does nothing and you die. But it scales a little bit, and these don't scale at all, really. So, yeah, I think it belongs there. Sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's better. So, cool. All right, here we go. This is a fun one. Driver's license will give you ×3 molt if you have at least 16 enhanced cards in your deck. So you gotta be 16 or older to use this bad boy, but ×3 molt is good. So ×3 molt, I'm immediately thinking, is this as good as Blackboard and Card Sharp? Getting 16 enhanced cards is a little difficult. If you know to play for it, you can make it happen though. To me, it feels pretty good. I don't think it's as good as Card Sharp or Blackboard. Like, I think these are easier to trigger. So I think it belongs at the top of A tier for me personally. Cartomancer will create a tarot card when the blind is selected. You can copy it with Blueprint or Brainstorm to get 2 tarot cards, which is nice. This is a way to get 1 tarot card per round. Pretty good. Random tarot card. Median tarot card is a slight boost. Random tarot card's pretty good. I don't know if it's worth $4 or not per round, but that's kind of what I'm thinking in my head. Like, would I rather have a random tarot card or $4? And I think the answer is it depends. So we're going to put it in B tier with some of these other economy jokers. Astronomer. All planet cards and celestial packs in the shops are free. This is interesting. Obviously it goes well with Satellite, goes well with Constellation, which I think is one of the best cards in the game. So it has synergy with that, which is nice. It can save you money. The thing is, a random planet card in the shop isn't going to help you, and getting a free planet pack might. But this thing costs, what, $6? $8. It costs $8 to buy, $4 to sell. So if you bought this, you have to have an open Joker slot. You buy it. You buy a $4 planet pack. It's neutral after you sell Astronomer. So it doesn't do anything most of the time. Sometimes it enables your Constellation, which is nice. Sometimes it enables Satellite. but I don't think that's enough on its own to get it out of D tier. Most of the time, it does nothing. Like, most of the time I see these cards, I don't buy them. Like, I have to have a good reason to buy them. Most of the time I see them, I'm like, yeah, it does nothing for me. You know, sometimes I need the money for credit card, so I buy it and use it then, but most of the time, nothing. Astronomer, most of the time, nothing. I'm not going to buy it and hold on to it and hope that I see, you know, if I buy it, I have a $4 planet pack, I hold on to it, I hope I see another $4 planet pack. Like, yeah, I guess in that case you come out cash positive, but there's no guarantee that happens. Were you going to spend the money on the planet packs anyway? Like, you're locking that money into planet packs, similar how you're locking money into rerolls. I'd rather lock money into rerolls than planet packs. All right, Burnt Joker. Upgrade the level of the first discarded poker hand each round. So if you discard a pair with your first discard, then you will level up a pair. Getting rid of a hand or a discard can be a little tricky, but trading card, getting rid of a discard, we don't care because the trade-off was good enough. The same thing is true for Burnt Joker. You're going to use this to level up your pairs or your high cards most likely, and it's just going to be good. You can copy it. It's great. It gives you chips. It gives you plus mults. You can sell it later on when you get your times mults. So you keep this bad boy for as long as you can. Then you run into Card Sharp and you sell it. And you have a nice smooth pivot with your level 22 pairs. And you win the run easily. Very good Joker. I think most people know that. Bootstraps. The last non-legendary Joker. Plus 2 mult for every $5 you have. Obviously, very similar to Bull. A Bull gives you plus 2 chips for every dollar you have. So $5 for the Bull is 10 chips. $5 for Bootstraps is 2 plus mult. Plus chips, when you have money, if you have enough money to make either of them work, you're probably out of the early game. If you're out of the early game, you probably are going to want more chips, believe it or not, because you're going to have these sources of plus mult. Like if you get your bus to 45 and you have a ×3, that's 120 times mult. Your chips might still be at 100. So, you know, every time you grow your plus mult, it gets multiplied. Like, I don't know. Between the two, you might prefer chips, but the ratio of 5 more chips per 1 plus mult means that Bull is definitely better than Bootstraps. Bootstraps can scale. They can be good. I don't know. It feels not that good though. $25 is what you normally have. That's going to give you 12 plus mult. $50 would give you plus 25. What's harder, getting to $50 or just playing 25 hands? Like it doesn't feel that good. It is retroactive, which is nice. If you have an insane economy, it can be nice. But if you have an insane economy, you probably rather would reroll to get, you know, a better Joker. All right, here we go with the legendaries. You can't buy these in the shop. You have to get them from soul cards, so you don't really have a choice on which one. You don't know beforehand. You just see the soul card and hope you get a good one. Let's start with the worst one first, which is Chico. So Chico will disable the effect of every boss blind. I mentioned before how Luchador feels not that good when you sell it to disable a boss blind. Chico will disable every boss blind, so you don't have to sell it, so that's nice. But you know, it still doesn't feel good. Making bosses are where you die a lot of the time, so making bosses irrelevant or much easier is good. But you can still lose on the big blind or even a boss without an upgrade. Like you still have high scoring pressure on Gold Stake, even without the Violet Vessel. You still need to score a lot of points, and this doesn't help you score those points. It does help you get through bosses, which is the most common place to die, but you can still die with Chico. The other legendaries are much better at helping you not die. Because would you rather disable a boss, or would you rather just score more points with Canio? So Canio gives you ×1 mult more every time you destroy a face card. So when you get Canio, it starts at ×1. But if you can trading card a face card, if you can Hanged Man a face card, if you can make a face card glass and break it that way, it'll go to ×2 or ×3 or ×4. So getting this to ×2, super easy. Getting it to ×3, I mean, if you get a Hanged Man, then yeah, you get it to ×3 pretty quick. It starts at ×1 though, and it might be at ×1 until you get an opportunity to destroy something. So it might be ×1 for a few rounds. So I have a hard time putting it in S+, but I think it's strong enough to be an S personally. It just might take a second to get it to 2 or ×3. So I can't really put it up here with Banana and Constellation. AAA, played kings and queens each give ×2 molt when scored. Similar to Photograph, except it can activate multiple times per hand, not just the first card. Re-triggers, obviously Sock and Buskin are going to make this go crazy. Times molt with, a pair of kings, you get it twice. Times molt on score is essentially a big plus molt from your planet cards. You'd rather the times molt be at the very end. So I guess I would prefer Canio over AAA, but AAA can do something immediately. It goes well with re-triggers, like you're playing with Hanging Chat a lot of the time. So you can make it work. You all, a lot of the time are going for kings anyway, kings or queens anyway. Just to like strength stuff, you might as well make more face cards because of the synergies. So AAA feels pretty good to me. I just don't know if it belongs in S or A. I'm tempted to just put it in S for now because it's a legendary. All right, York. York is probably the best legendary when it comes to beating Ante-8. I think it's an S+. Every time you discard 23 cards, it gains ×1 molt. So if you have 2 discards, you can discard 10 cards. So after 2.5 rounds, this will gain an extra ×molt. I think it gains ×molt. It gets to ×2 faster than Canio, in my experience. And it also scales beyond. You can find ways to get more discards through vouchers or the +1 discard joker. So and this is pretty easy to get more than ×3 as well. Like it feels like the best card in the game for beating Ante-8. Like if I could choose a single card at the start to win, I think it's York. Constellation's up there, trading cards up there, Blueprint might be up there, but you have to have a good card to copy, and then you obviously can't get Cavendish. So yeah, York probably is the best card in the game. Perkeo is really fun for Endless, and she's not bad for Gold Stake by any means. Ante-8, probably an A tier though. It will give you a negative copy of a consumable in your possession. So if you have the Telescope upgrade, which will give you ×, from your planets, from your consumables, if you score that hand, this can give you basically more steel cards for free. More realistically, you get a good tarot card in the shop and you just make negative copies of it. Like, yeah, you would love to have negative Hermits or negative Temperances and then just print money. But you can also do negative Hangman, negative Deaths, negative gold card, tarot cards, negative planet of whatever you need. So it's pretty good. Like, I think a negative sells for $4. So even if you have nothing useful at all, it's $4 per round. Realistically, though, you find an above average tarot card, copy that, and so you find an even better tarot card. So yeah, let's look at the tier list overall. B tier is the beefiest. C tier and B tier are the beefiest, which feels about right. There are more A, S, and S plus than there are D and F, which also feels about right. So I would say, generally speaking, F tier I never really buy. Like maybe I'll move Baron up because sometimes I have kings in my deck and I'll buy it for more steel cards. But these are cards that I very rarely, I never buy these F tier cards, like literally ever. This goes with hologram, but that's it. D tier I can buy, but I'm not that excited about it most of the time. Maybe I get some face card synergy. Maybe I have kings already. Maybe I have a bunch of stone cards and it can help a little bit. Hiker I can sell later, but not really doing too much most of the time. Not that excited for it. C tier, we can make it work. I see this that they'll either help me win for the next few rounds, or they provide a niche benefit that if I build around, it can feel like an A tier card. Sock and Buskin can feel like an A tier, maybe even an S tier card. DNA can feel like an A tier or an S tier card. But they're just more limited than higher up cards. B tiers are kind of the backbone of a lot of runs. You're going to get 1 or 2 B tier cards and feel pretty good. A tier are ones that I think you can win a run off of. Maybe trio and order, you have to already be playing 3 of a kind or a straight. In fact, I think that's a good enough reason to drop them down a tier. Yeah. That's true. So these are all, if I get them, I feel like I should win. And then S tier are run winners. S plus is, yeah, free win. So that's my tier list. Feel free to disagree, put in the comments what you think. If I had to guess the most controversial placings, I would say some of the re-triggers, like Hack, are probably lower, Suck and Buskin, than a lot of people would want them to be. Maybe Supernova being in B tier. What's high up that people might not like? Some people may just not know about Red Card or not like Obelisk. Some people think Campfire is not as good as it is, but I think overall, I mean, Balatro's pretty well played, well thought about game. For Gold Stake, this is largely driven by what works well with the common hand types, so pairs primarily, but also maybe high card, flush, flush house, straight, 4 of a kind. Those are the most common. 2 pair. All of those can work, but you basically are going to rely on what the game gives you. If you see an S tier, you're just going to work around it. You're going to build your deck around it. Even with an A tier, you're probably going to play around it pretty heavily. Like if I get Cloud 9, I'm going to be making more 9s to make more money. Maybe some economy jokers belong more in the A tier. Like, is there a 2-tier gap between Mail-in Rebate and Chaos the Clown or Faceless Joker? I don't know. I actually think there might be. But some of the time, these B tiers can really feel like S tiers. Like Mime, if you have Red Seal Steel, like that feels like an S tier card. Burglar can feel like an S tier card if it's scaling your bus. Glass Joker, obviously you smash a few glass cards, suddenly it's an S tier. So all of these cards have potential based on how you play to move up or down, probably 2 tiers. Like, I don't think you can really get, even 8-ball. You can make it a B tier if you have a ton of 8s. Because then it's just giving you 1 tarot card per round, which is what Cartomancer does. So, I think all of these have potential to move around a little bit based on playstyle. So if a card's in 1 tier off from you, I don't know if it's worth really talking about too much. But, if you're someone who says superposition sucks, it should be an F tier, that's a 2-tier gap. So I'd be curious to hear what you guys think. But yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think.